And
Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Fantasy and Frames Kickoff show for week 3. Get ready for 3 hours of nonstop action on both sides of the ball. Starting Well, was I preemptive there, Keith?
I don't know.
You were asking me a question, and of course, when that red light, it's all right. I can handle it. What were you saying to me before we started?
Well, I was just going to pull up the show sheet, try to be, organized this morning and know the order of the games, and I was just making sure it was on Twitter so that way I could pull it up on my computer. I think it is though, so. My bad.
Yeah, it's okay. I think it should have been sent over yesterday, I suppose. And if not, guess what? You're a professional. You'll figure it out. And I'll just give you a heads up. But good morning, everybody. It's the Fantasy and Frames kickoff show for week 3. As I discussed, 3 straight hours, nonstop fantasy action, actionable advice, information, IDP, offense. Keith Fleming, Nate Markham right now, Jorge Edwards, and others to join, I'm sure. Keith, good morning. How are things?
Good morning. I'm good. This is the last, we've got less than 12 hours of us being friends, and then we will be mortal enemies for 3.5 to 4 hours tonight as the Chiefs play the Falcons. So Nate's like, dude, you're not going to be a mortal enemy. You're the Falcons. We don't really think about you like that. That's cute. But I am looking forward to the game tonight. I think it's going to be a fun one. Wish I could go. Have some friends obviously going to the game. I think Taylor Swift potentially being there has raised the ticket prices. Like, it is insane what the average ticket is going for. And I think that's got to be it. No disrespect to Mahomes or anything, but I've seen big teams come in and I've never seen the secondary market Falcons tickets be at the prices they are right now. And my wife was the one that goes, well, Taylor Swift might be there. And I went, that's exactly what it is probably. So,
and I didn't know. My wife and daughter would know. Daughter's a converted Eagles or Philly Falcons fan. Ooh. And so Kirk Cousins that's her guy, and she watched the quarterback a couple years ago and really awesome. Took a hold of that. Was Vikings fan last year and said I'm ride or die with Cousins, not with necessarily the team specific for now. And then so now she'll root for both. She still likes the Vikings to some extent. But she is, she's Falcons. Her wardrobe, she's 23. So her wardrobe, and she's got her own money. So was all Vikings last year. That's been purged now. Now it's all Falcons, everything. And she is, she's ready to go. So it's going to be an internal battle. So not only do I have the fight, on home soil, I have it from abroad as well. So that's, it is what it is. But start off with this. So Randy Miller, good morning. He wants to know, should he stick with Jalen Waddle or Deontay versus the Raiders? I mean, I got to tell you, I am so far out on Waddle, but am I out enough to be down to where Deontay is with Dalton? Thoughts?
I mean, I'm somebody who really likes the change that the Panthers made to Dalton. When Joe Matz told me that right now Carolina's offensive line pass block win rate is 5th among offensive lines in the NFL, it's kind of hard to defend Bryce Young, starting any more games, because the Panthers were doing a good job. From people that I know that are much smarter than me that watch game tapes, hey, guys are open and he's just not getting them the ball. Having said that, it would be a tough loss, in my opinion, if you sit Waddle for Deontay with what we've seen so far. I do personally like Johnson. I think he's got a better matchup this week. I do. It's crazy to say, but I trust Andy Dalton way more than I do Skylar Thompson. And then on top of that, what concerns me a little bit about Waddle is just the fact that they're going to still try to get the ball to Hill. I think you're going to see a lot of A-Chain, a lot of Geno Smith in this game. That's typically what young QBs do, is they throw a lot more to running backs, tight ends. But, I mean, Randy, let's put it this way. I think it would be a deal, Randy, where, and I'm sorry, I know this sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but this is the way I look at matchups, is if I'm looking at the matchup and from projections, I need just a good base, and I think there's a good chance I'm going to win, I would stick with Waddle. If you think that you need extra, I think I would actually go with Deontay, because I think he's got a higher upside this week than Waddle, which I know that sounds amazing. What a time to be alive, but that's kind of how I feel.
Nope, I agree with that. I will say going forward, I'm kind of excited for the idea that Tyler Huntley could eventually take over for my Waddle shares that I do have. So that being that, I do agree, stick with Waddle. Good morning, Charlene. Wait, Charlene's up. Does that mean she'd be up really super early? Is that what the message I think I saw yesterday was? If that's
I think she's on the West Coast too, so that means it's like 6:30 there. God bless you. You're the real hero, Charlene. So
exactly. Jorge is still in bed, so you have he has no excuse now. 3-hour difference there. Albert, good morning to you too. And then look at this. It absolutely makes my morning to see Gator J in the chat. It is because Arthur Blank decided to put himself into the Ring of Honor. He has free hot dogs and soda, or at least relatively super cheap free hot dogs and soda, free beer, cheap beer too, and everything. I like the pricing format that they have. Yes, he has to pay for that somehow. Times are tough for Arthur Blank, I'm sure. You know, I mean, the pocketbook gets tighter whenever you start giving away all that money for a billionaire. It's rough.
It's tough to be a billionaire these days. That's one thing we can all agree in this country, is it's really tough to be a billionaire.
It is. Across the bottom, we will have a Venmo. What is that? Where you set up the account for people whenever they need money.
Like the QR code or something.
Yeah, but there's a name that unfortunately it's stupid that I can't think of it right now. But yes, I woke up at 5:15. Woof. Well,
thanks.
You're up, you're with us, so might as well listen. And when early bird gets the worm, so now you're going to have a couple extra hours of advantage over everybody else in your league, and win. So
GoFundMe, there you go. Thank you, Gator.
GoFundMe, thank you. Golly, that's why Gator's the best in the business. He's quick. I ramble through without knowing GoFundMe account, so that's what it is. We started GoFundMe. Tell you what, the New York Giants probably could use a GoFundMe in terms of getting some other talent around Malik Neighbors, because it's been, and actually Devin Singletary too. We'll get there. But first game on the slate for us is the New York Giants at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland's a 6.5-point favorite. It's a 38.5-point over. Gross. Some notable inactives, injuries. Brian Burns on the defensive side was limited on Friday. More information to come out this morning to see just how limited he was, if it was kind of a maintenance day for him, and a little bit more as well. David Njoku is out. Pierre Strong is out. Jedrick Wills was limited 3 times this week. That doesn't bode well for either the pass or the rushing attack for Cleveland. Myles Garrett was mentioned that he now has injuries to basically both feet. He's going to have to play through it. It's a pain tolerance type scenario, and that surgery probably will be needed, but not yet. Dude is a beast. We'll see how all those things play out for the defensive side and the offensive side for Cleveland. But start with New York, Keith. Obviously, there's pretty only about 2 players on that entire team that I think anybody's touching in fantasy. One's Malik Neighbors, who I have to think is kind of almost in that must-start territory for you, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about for standard leagues, for sure.
Standard leagues, three wide receiver type scenario.
Yeah, for sure. Because I was going to say, I don't even know if he's a wide receiver 2 this week, which I know that's crazy, but this is a really stingy Brown secondary. I just think the Giants are going to have I think this is one of those games that I really don't want to have much of anything, unless it's the Browns defense. Or you could even maybe convince me into the Giants defense if you're streaming. But I mean, what do you see? Like 18 targets last week. So I'm pretty sure you have to go, with Neighbors just because of the volume. But I think Wan'Dale Robinson is actually really interesting if you're in a deeper league and you're looking for somebody to start, particularly PPR leagues. Last week he didn't see the targets he did week 1, but he did catch a touchdown. And you would just have to think the Browns are going to do everything in their power to try to take away Malik Neighbors, because, again, he saw 17 or whatever targets last week. And I think you could end up seeing Wan'Dale Robinson funneled a lot of passes, especially because this Giants O-line is going to have a hard time protecting Danny Dimes, and that means he's going to have to get rid of the ball quickly.
Yeah, and that's kind of exactly what I see for Wan'Dale. I mean, the 14% target share in week 2, PPR volume, if they can pass the ball enough, is there. What he does with it is going to be limited, probably not much of anything at all in terms of total yardage, but that's, it's a supportive argument. There's enough to go with that. And so real quick, hey, good morning, Sunshine. He's going to be on mute, so we'll just insert.
That's all right. We'll just dub your
Jorge.
audio.
Yep.
Like the old Godzilla movies.
Right. Hola. Mi alarm no está. I don't know how to say my alarm didn't go off in Spanish, so I apologize for that. And that was not probably not cool. Let's get a question in for Parker.
He's gone. How about that? You ran him off.
Damn. All right. Look at that. Exactly. All right. Zay or DK?
It's a close one. I think I would lean Zay just because I worry Seattle is going to get up big potentially if Miami has issues scoring with Thompson at QB. Flowers is seeing a higher target rate. I mean, it was just a 1-week sample size, but JSN was way more targeted than DK Metcalf last week. I know Metcalf obviously had the big touchdown play, so he had a huge game as well, but I'm always looking for volume, and I think Flowers has seen double-digit targets each of the first 2 weeks. Cowboys defense, if you've watched either of their 2 games, is not great. I would lean Flowers.
That's tricky for me because I think that like you mentioned, the hyper targeted JSN, which left DK a little bit less, and the game script, I still think equals to the potential number of target volume that Baltimore could have, just because I assume that, I don't know, I assume a lot of things and I'm way wrong. Like I assume this game can try to be won through the air for both sides because that's where, Baltimore's failed as far as the secondary teams have been able to throw on them. But
yeah, but who do you think? Go ahead. Who do you think? Which team do you think is going to dominate their opponent? I think Seattle is going to just crush Miami to the point where it's going to be a Charbonnet show in the second half, and so therefore the necessity to throw or the need to throw doesn't really favor DK. Whereas Flowers, I just feel like they just will consistently have him involved in the game script.
There you go. So you got 2 for Zay, and I think that's called the majority.
Again, right? If it's PPR, if it's a standard league, I would still lean Metcalf.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much, Paul Subia, for donating to the Fantasy and Frames Fund here. You have a question here. We're going to prioritize you. Thank you very much.
He's sending you $4.99 to get a new alarm. That's probably not in the chat, but that's what's assumed right now.
Or some Starbucks. I have my Celsius, an official sponsor of the Fantasy and Frames Kickoff show. So
great. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we got it says flex Ferguson for double tight end lineup with McBride and Ferg, or flex DeAndre Swift. So my initial premium? Thought, yeah, let us know that, please, Paul. So my initial thought here is I get the Forrest Buckner is not playing for Indianapolis, and I get that the Colts can be run on. I just don't know whether or not DeAndre Swift is the right running back to call and say that they're going to trust him enough.
It's a full PPR.
Then okay. I think it's McBride and Ferguson.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I do like DeAndre Swift this week as far as like that potential. The recipe makes sense for him to have his first, hey, DeAndre Swift's back. Right, exactly. But what we've seen, his quote unquote breakout week could be just Jake Ferguson's middle of the pack. Maybe his, not floor per se, but pretty closer to that than his ceiling. So there you go. Again, thank you, Paul. We will take pictures of Jorge with his new alarm and post that to Twitter. Charlene, Anthony wants to know. Anthony was with us early. 12-team PPR. He needs 3 here. Waddle, Deontay, DeMarcus, T. Higgins, Amari Cooper. Man, you want to talk about this is the type of question that I just love, because this is a real question that I feel like affects every one of us in some league, because we all have, the upside of DeMarcus Robinson in the situation where he should be the target leader. T. Higgins, will he get involved when he first came back? Deontay with Dalton, Waddle, unfortunately, with the bad quarterback, and Amari Cooper just has been atrocious. So, Keith, I'm going to let you have the honor of telling us one for sure that you're going with.
Oh, I'm going with T. Higgins for sure. Earmuffs, Jorge. Washington secondary couldn't stop me and you, Nate. We were out there playing QB and wide receiver. So
Nice.
I like all. I think Chase, his props, I think they got a alt prop line on Sleeper where you get like plus 200 odds for him to go over 100 yards. I think that is a lock. And I think Higgins is also going to, it's such a different Bengals offense when both of those guys are out there. I think Higgins is a must start because, again, none of these other guys have great situations. Waddle, QB situation, Deontay Johnson, Panthers offense has been a mess. DeMarcus Robinson, we'll see which Rams receiver ends up actually getting a majority of the targets. And Cooper plays with Deshaun Watson. So to me, Higgins is the one that is easy.
Jorge, you got another one besides Higgins?
Wait, you said Higgins, Robinson, and Johnson? Is that the 3 that he was going with?
He only gave us one. He gave us T. Higgins. So I'm going to let you have it.
Yeah, I'm going Deontay Johnson, and it's crazy to think that I'm so super confident, especially since Andy Dalton's going to be playing, and he hasn't played except for one game last year. Mm-hmm. Last year he had 50 passing attempts last year, so I think he locks on to his more efficient chain mover, which is going to be those short to intermediate passes, which is going to go Deontay Johnson's way. So I agree with Higgins. I like Deontay Johnson. Who do you like out of this bunch, Nate?
Oh, I don't like him, but we had a question earlier about Waddle. And even though I think it's going to be almost only Tyreek that I want to play, I still think Waddle has the potential of any of them to have that, just that kind of upside where 2-3 catches and then does something with the ball in his hands. I just can't do Cooper. And as much as I like DeMarcus Robinson, it makes sense. We talked about that earlier. Matthew Stafford has the ability, and it wouldn't shock me if San Francisco, a lot of that depends on, Bosa's fine, but are they going to need Bosa for the entire game if they get up big? And does that just mean garbage time for DeMarcus Robinson? I say no. As much as I like DeMarcus Robinson, I think garbage time will be probably go to Whittington just for that. So we'll see. So we'll go with that. Holy moly.
I knew we got another person. I wasn't expecting him to show up. Oh my God. Sean McGlenn? Is that true? Good
morning.
Hey, John.
I got about an hour and a half or so to speak with the pros of the pros here on Fantasy and Frame. So
whoa,
I shoot my shot.
I thought pros normally show up on time though, so I guess you mean me and Nate, and then pros, and then Jorge. So
why do I come last? That's funny. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Suck it, Jorge. All right. Well, John, you get the first question of the day then for you at least. Pick 2, full point PPR. Jordan Mason, Evan Achan, or Saquon Barkley.
You have to go with Saquon. That's rule number 1 here. So that's I got a feeling that they're gonna. I'm gonna go Achan because it feels like the 49ers offense kind of falls apart when they have when someone's not there.
Yeah.
Like when you lose McCaffrey, and now you don't have Kittle either. They can't just funnel the offense through Mason. So I'm going to go A-Chain. They still have their decoys in Hill and Waddle. Skylar Thompson, even that was Matt Waldman's number 1 quarterback. In case you didn't know that, I mean, I'm not a humongous Skylar Thompson fan. I'm not pumping the Skylar Thompson bandwagon flag here, but I think A-Chain is going to get his because they have to focus on the receivers more than anything. And A-Chain, it's all it takes is for him to have a small hole and he's gone. Mason's more of a workhorse. He doesn't have the gifts that A-Chain has. So I'm going to say A-Chain and Barkley would be my two.
I would agree with that. Jorge? Keith?
Yeah, why don't
I don't want to, y'all two agree on it. I think that's fair. I would rather have Mason and A-Chain, but I understand the thought process. I just look at Mason's getting 98% of the 49er rush attempts through 2 weeks and 100% of the carries inside the 10-yard line. They are going to pound the rock today. I know he doesn't catch passes, but that doesn't mean that he still can't be a top 5 running back this week.
See, you guys had a majority before with like 2 or 3 people. I wanted to ruin all that for you. I wanted to make sure it wasn't, you didn't have any easy solutions to anything anymore.
Exactly. Now we can have 2 and 2. So then we leave the nice viewers with, you do it yourself. Don't come here and blame us. Yeah. Be a big boy. We can lead a horse to water, but what I said last week, can't make him smoke cigarettes or whatever the phrase I heard someone say one time, which I thought was funny. I guess if I thought it was funny, I should have remembered it, but it wasn't that funny, but funny for me. So it is what it is. All right. Hey, IDP question for Summer. Jorge, I'm going to let you start off with this one. I'll click it. I'll let you get acclimated. Needs 3 defensive backs out of this group. Justin Reed, Quentin Lake, Nick Cross, Grant Delpit. I love the IDP defensive back question to start off the morning.
So for me, it would be the first 3, especially Nick Cross. However, Nick Cross has been back in the scrimmage, and Julian Blackman is back, and so we don't know whether Blackman is just going to jump back into his normal box safety role and Cross go back to free safety, play more in coverage. So because of that, I'm going to go Reed, Lake, and Delpit.
I will agree with you on that, and I hope that we're wrong and Nick Cross is a superstar, because I love Nick Cross. He's a good player. So, all right. Baird wants to know. Keith, I'll let you start here so that then we'll start the majority. Pick 2 between DeMarcus Robinson, Deontay, Waddle, and Higgins. See, I'm telling you, this is going to be – these names we're going to see over and over because going into week 1, it looked fantastic. Oh, Deontay rebound. Bryce Young's about to blow up this year. All the – ignorance. Waddle's attached to the best offense with Tua. Higgins is going to be fantastic again. Him and Chase together with a healthy Burrow and a full season. And then just in case Cooper or Puka get hurt, I have DeMarcus Robinson. And now you're in this shit sandwich.
Both. Yeah, right. Again, I look at these things from the matchup. So if you're in a matchup where you think everywhere but this decision that you're making, you're in a good chance to win, I think the guys that are the safest would be Waddle, Higgins. But if I'm going for upside and you think you need a big game, I'd probably throw Deontay in there with Higgins. I have to have Higgins versus Washington. To me, the top 2 receivers versus Washington secondary right now is just they're giving up the most passing yards in the NFL again. This year, last year, they gave up the most passing yards, most passing touchdowns. And, Burrow is just ready to fling it. He threw like 35 pass attempts to tight ends last week. So he's ready to throw the ball down the field to some wide receivers. And then, again, it's hard to sit Waddle for Deontay Johnson, but I like Andy Dalton a lot this week. Again, Carolina's offensive line, 5th in pass block win rate. So you would think that with the issues with Bryce, the line's been awful. That has not been the case. Last time Dalton started for the Panthers last year, he threw for 350 plus. So it's not that crazy to say it's going to be an improvement. And Deontay Johnson is one of the best route winners in the NFL at wide receiver.
There you go. Unless you guys have something confoundingly different, we can go to the next question.
No, I just think that Deontay is probably going to be, he's a separator. He's going to get room. You're going to have a quarterback that actually shows that he runs his routes, that he gets open, that he can catch the ball. I traded Deontay Johnson away before the season started, just figuring that, the quarterback Bryce Young was not going to get him the ball all year long. Change a quarterback here. I agree 100%. It's a huge uptick for Deontay here. So I'm going to go definitely Deontay. And then I guess I'm going to go Higgins too. I just think those are the 2 best of these 4.
I can't disagree.
I guess I'll add to the latter 3 just because, and everybody knows I'm a huge fan of Wan'Dale heading into the season. But you look at the slot cornerbacks for Cleveland. Both Greg Newsome and Cameron Mitchell have both been basically splitting slot coverage duties, and their quarterback rating allowed when targeted, the wide receiver is below 60. So they really are good at locking down these wide receivers. So I think Wan'Dale's going to have kind of a hard time today. So yeah, give me Deontay, Waddle, and Higgins.
What the hell's Wan'Dale?
He got mixed up with DeMarcus.
Oh, God damn it. I looked up that stat for no reason. Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, you did a lot of work. All right. So if you're thinking about Wan'Dale, there you are. So future questions, if it revolves around Wan'Dale, we'll focus back on that. Let's maybe Ryan has a question that has about somebody that's close to maybe something you can research. Morning. He wants to start James Conner and flex against or he wants a question. No, should he start James Conner in the flex against a tough Lions run D, or play likely Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, Terry McLaurin, or Aaron Jones? Now, real quick on the tough Lions run D. As much as I think they are tough, I also think the numbers are skewed because people have a tendency just to throw against them so often because the secondary is so bad that it is a little skewed. Alex Anzalone suffered a concussion. He may be out. If that's the case, Jack Campbell's going to play a little bit more. The linebacking room is a little banged up. Doesn't mean that they won't be successful against the run, but just, what I'm wondering about Lions defense. But he is iffy on starting McBride at tight end, as I think the Lions rebound today. Okay, so if you're iffy at starting McBride at tight end, what's the other option? It better be
Brock Bowers.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go there. All right, Jorge. Do you want to go with James Conner, or would you rather pivot to Isaiah Likely, Baltimore Ravens, Brian Thomas Jr., Jacksonville, Xavier Worthy, he's on the Chiefs, Terry McLaurin is on your wall. Which your jersey back there has about as many catches as he does on the season, or Aaron Jones?
I think, first of all, that's wishful thinking for Terry McLaurin this season so far. I would stick with James Conner. Yeah, that's what I would go with.
I would as well. John?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with James Conner too. I mean, the boom bust of Brian Thomas Jr. that we heard so much stuff coming out of camp that he's going to be the best thing on his team. He's going to be the new Stephon Diggs replacement. You got zero anything last week. McLaurin, I don't know what I predicted Terry McLaurin to have one of his biggest bounce back years this year. Like, he was going to be the guy. There's nothing else on the team besides Terry McLaurin. Why wouldn't that be the guy? Why wouldn't that happen? So I just don't know. I love Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones can have a great game any week whatsoever. You always have to have Aaron Jones in your lineup. And another thing is this McBride situation here really scares me, man. I have McBride at tons and tons and tons of teams, and if he's going to keep getting low targets or low catches on these weeks, I don't know how long he'll be like a top 5 go get him tight end kind of, even in a tight end premium. So I don't. I like Aaron Jones here. But Aaron Jones, I think, is the safest of them. I'll put it that way.
I mean, you got to remember, though, tight end right now is a wasteland. I think McBride's like tight end number 2 in scoring. Crazy. So, he's still getting a bigger target rate than Marvin Harrison Jr. right now. So, I think he's fine. And I think the Lions matchup is potentially a really good one for him because they have a good pass rush.
Tight end. So, he's got 8 targets or 8, something like that. It's not like he's got he's just killing. I don't understand it's only 2 weeks, but I'd rather have somebody that has production like Aaron Jones.
So that's a question I've been thinking a little bit, and I would just get briefly each one of your opinions. Knowing the tight end landscape,
15 targets, just FYI.
8 catches. Sorry,
11 receptions. So
I thought he had 8.
He's got. I'm looking at right now. 11 receptions on 15 targets.
Yeah. Okay, so don't be that. But the volume at tight end as a whole, let's put it that way, outside of McBride, outside of Brock Bowers, is now a good time to potentially trade one of the Sam Laporta, maybe Travis Kelce's value is not going to be as high, but knowing that the landscape is less, like I thought it was going to be all middle centric. There was going to be 10 plus tight ends that you could have. You're comfortable. I just don't know if trading one of the top pieces now, knowing that maybe there might not be as much separation, or realistically, we're probably too early into the season, right, Jorge? 2 games in, let's not overreact and start selling pieces, anticipating future success or future lack of success.
Yes, I will say for those who are, who have hit the injury bug, which I think is everybody, but those who have hit the injury bug very severely, I would be looking to get involved in some kind of Dalton Kincaid trade. He's currently the tight end 37 in PPR, which Jesus. But I don't think that's. I think that's more of an anomaly than anything else. And I think the Bills will get it together with Dalton Kincaid in this passing game, so he can. The fantasy managers now who have him are like, oh my god, he was supposed to be a top 5 tight end, and I'm like, well, 2 games in, like maybe you can get him on the cheap or something,
And we saw last week. Sorry, John, didn't mean to cut you off there, but we saw how he came in, started hot, got kicked in the head, left. The game got out of hand. Didn't really play much. Kincaid trending in the right direction. John, go right ahead.
My apologies there. In my head, I had Sam Laporta stats in there for Trey McBride, so I don't know why I was thinking that the reverse had been just a little bit too much talking fantasy. So that's
dude. It's 9 a.m. You don't have to apologize. Like, it's early.
It's 10 a.m. for. Oh, no, it's not. Yeah, for some people.
8:48 for us Midwesters here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like 3 a.m. for Charlene, who's the real trooper here.
Yeah, right.
Which here, and by the way, we'll get to the rest of these questions. I do want to make sure we just bounce through at least one team on this show so that it's 11 o'clock, the normal time. We talked about Malik Neighbors. Obviously, we think that given he's the wide receiver 4 on the season, which is early, but target share, volume, Cleveland's tough, but you feel comfortable with him just getting the ball. Question I would have is Devin Singletary. True possible workhorse, 70% of the snaps in each game. He's averaging 70 plus yards from scrimmage, 7th in rush attempts per broken tackle, or broken tackle per rush attempt. I think that maybe we're finally getting to it. He's just exiting the flex play and getting into that RB2 type volume conversation. I'm becoming more of a believer just because I don't trust the Giants, but I trust volume. Is that a crazy concept, especially this week against the Cleveland Browns, whose defense notoriously has been good, but they have been able to, they have some chinks in the armor, as they say. John?
I am not going to, I got to mute myself because my dog keeps walking back and forth on its floor over here. So sorry about that. But volume is king. The volume is in any position. I want to be receiver, tight end, running back. If you're getting the ball, that's you have to go by that. If you're getting the touches, things are going to happen. You may be it may be a situation where you're getting massive workload like a Derrick Henry, which hasn't really happened that much this year. I know he's getting a lot, but not like Derrick Henry-ish like we expected the Ravens to be. But if you're going to break one, you saw Devin Singletary march, just kind of waltz in the end zone last week. Things are going to happen when the balls are in your hands. So I shouldn't have said that. It sounded terrible, but things are going to happen when you get the ball. So I'm going to agree with you 100% on that.
Gotcha. It's hard to recommend. I expect more. Like I want to say I expect more questions involving Devin Singletary as a flex play over some others, but unfortunately, I think that it's not. It's one of those tricky things that people are turned off because it's the Giants and Devin Singletary is just not a sexy name. Let's go to a question. Josh's question is one that I love because, again, the ick factor as my daughter, and John, you have a daughter that's 20 something, right?
I have a 20, about to be 21, and a 20-year-old. Yes, those are my two youngest ones.
So they know, the word, the ick, and which one of these wide receivers don't give us the ick, as they say. Yep, I am trendy and hip and cool, everybody. So Josh, 1 point PPR. He has Mike Evans, Rashee Rice. Boom. There you go. Need a wide receiver 3 and a flex out of Jordan Whittington, Juwan Jennings, Keon Coleman, Deontay Johnson, Austin Eckler. Think this is the week Coleman goes off. To answer that question first and foremost, I don't know. I think that's the answer there, but I don't know. Because you could say the insert Khalil Shakir. I don't know. Curtis Samuel. I don't know. Dalton Kincaid. We don't know. So start there. Keith, need a wide receiver 3. You've got 2, what I would consider pretty stable, horses there in Evans and Rice. Are you shooting for pure upside out of your 3? Are you looking for a floor play? And if that's the case, which one are you leaning?
Man, obviously you got to have a pretty good roster if you're starting Evans and Rice. That wide receiver, they've obviously had, both a monster game week 1. I know Evans didn't have a great game week 2, but I really like Winnington. I think that he's going to end up being the guy that sees the most targets out of this Rams wide receiver group. He played the slot on almost every snap after Cooper Kupp went out last week. They did some rush stuff with him this preseason, and I just think that he's the guy that's going to be able to win, the most. And Stafford proved last year with Puka that Puka was the most talented guy, even though he didn't have a relationship with him like he did with Demarcus Robinson or Tutu Atwell. That previous experience that he went immediately to Puka early and often. It would not surprise me if Whittington, again, to speak to John's point on volume, ends up seeing the most volume out of these guys. It was between Whittington and Deontay Johnson. I just think Whittington has more upside because I think the Niners are going to score points, and I think the Rams are going to be forced to pass, and that could be very good for whichever Rams pass catcher ends up seeing the most targets, gets most receptions, et cetera. And I think Whittington is the most likely guy to do that.
Jorge, I want to get your opinion on this.
So I made sure I researched the right, matchup here with Buffalo and Jacksonville. And so I'm looking at these cornerbacks, and I think this is not, I disagree with you there, Joshua, just on the fact that Keon Coleman's cornerbacks have been really stingy as far as receptions and yards after the catch. And so I'm kind of fading him this week, but I think his time is coming. Whittington, Deontay Johnson, Juwan Jennings. I actually like Juwan Jennings in this matchup. I think they're going to be taking away from here, and they got to pass the ball to somebody. And let's not forget, although they did not win the Super Bowl, they were giving your Chiefs there, Nate, Juwan Jennings, that is, giving him some work. And we saw last week he gets somewhat involved in the passing game. So although I like Deontay Johnson with Andy Dalton, I'm not going to lie, but my first inclination right here is go Juwan Jennings.
Okay, John.
Deontay Johnson's my answer. I think he's going to be the guy this week. I think they have something to prove. They need to score some points. They got to get the offense going. They're going to pepper the guys, the go-to guys. I don't want the guys like the Whittingtons and and Jennings and guys who are fill-ins who aren't really comfortable with the quarterback or the play. I'd rather have someone like Deontay who just is a stud receiver. I guess I just can't get off Deontay Johnson this week because I know that he is such a polished receiver in the NFL. He can make any quarterback look good. So the other guys, I like Whittington. Don't get me wrong. I have him. I was the first one to grab him as soon as, I think I've had him. I drafted him a lot of my rookie drafts, like the 5th round, just to have him on my roster, right from the get-go. So I've always liked him, but I'm just going to say like Deontay Johnson is the answer for me here.
Yeah. I bounce back and forth. Like I look at I want non-zero out of any of these guys. And I think that as much as I don't believe Whittington will be a 0, but far from it, just because in the Cooper Kupp type role, that's where the majority of the offense should be funneled. Juwan Jennings, I could see, like we said earlier, this Jordan Mason, if it's not a ton of explosive runs, they controlling the clock, and 4 targets to Juwan Jennings is not enough. Keon Coleman has shown a potential to be a complete 0, which scares me. So I'm going to lean just a little bit towards Deontay as well, I feel like there's a stable floor. The upside play is I don't know the answer. It's between Keon Coleman and Jordan Whittington. It's a volume case for Whittington. It's the pure upside of 6 catches for 2 touchdowns for Keon Coleman because it's Buffalo. So I'll lean Deontay. Josh, thank you very much for the question. We shall get, unfortunately, from a great question from a great person to a bad situation and bad teams. No offense, Cleveland fans, but come on, 38.5 point totals. I don't know who's going to be watching this game if you have to choose from many of the ones we're going to talk about. We'll talk about choose. Jorge, you can choose one of these two running backs to play and produce the most today for the Cleveland Browns. Week 1, Jerome Ford, massive workload. Week 2, Deontay Foreman took the majority of that workload. Week 3, insert, and there's no Pierre Strong, so you can't pivot to him and say it's going to be the Pierre Strong week. So
I still think it's Jerome Ford. He came into the season supposed to be the lead back. I think last week was weird. I did not expect that type of game script to go against Jacksonville. I thought Jacksonville would put up more of a fight there. I think Jerome Ford kind of asserts his dominance this week against the Giants, especially this Giants team whose defensive line outside of Dexter Lawrence is not anything you should be afraid of from a running game standpoint.
I have personally right now Jerry Jeudy over Amari Cooper in my wide receiver rankings for this week and probably going forward, which is I didn't think I'd be there. John, am I delusional, or is that kind of the trend that you're seeing with this Cleveland Browns team as well?
No, I honestly think that Foreman might carry the ball more than Jerome Ford, but Ford will get more catches. So I think you can't really go wrong with either one of them, but I think Ford will have probably a better game as far as fantasy football is concerned. But it's probably going to be just a balanced workload, I would think.
Gotcha. And what about Jeudy over Amari Cooper?
Man,
tough one.
There's so much bashing on Jerry Jeudy right now. I like him. I think he's okay. But Cooper's just a stud. Cooper could have one of those games, any game. Any game. Cooper's, I think, just a better player altogether. I think Judy's underrated, but Amari Cooper is way, way underrated. As far as his whole career, he's been an underrated player, and he has the ability to turn it on any game and be a NFL and a fantasy stud. So we've seen it before. I've got knocked out of playoffs last year because of it, in multiple leagues because of his awesome game last year.
Mm-hmm.
He has. You have to go. Yeah, I'm definitely Coleman for me. Coleman. Cool. What am I saying? Cooper. I mean, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, looks like we will have. It's not a disagreement. It's just if Cooper doesn't drop some of the passes, he probably is still going to be even more heavily targeted than what he has been. It's a product situation. But situationally speaking, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Jorge. We saw with the Giants, Micah McFadden saw snaps increasing. How many more snaps does he need for him to start getting into your lineup? And who else on this matchup or in this matchup will be in your lineups and should be in others?
So I actually have Micah McFadden ranked kind of high this week. I have him as my LB20, so I think he should be. So there you go. Now, normally for IDP purposes, I would say, Thibodeau and Brian Burns should be household names. You should be locking into your lineups. Let me tell you how they're doing fantasy wise. If we're going off of Fantasy Pros IDP, we're talking about 6. Let me pull it up. Sorry, one second. We're talking about around 6 points per game outside the top 40. I don't know if that's exactly a ringing endorsement for either. You still have Bobby Okereke there that you could definitely slide in there. In terms of more players for the Giants, you mentioned it, I think, a couple of days ago in conversations. Tyler Nubin has been playing a majority of box snaps. What was it, like 54% of box snaps, I think, last week.
That's about right.
But the tackle numbers have not been there, but the opportunity is there, is what you want, seriously. On the flip side for Cleveland, JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I think we were all happy to finally see him play 100% of snaps, and this dude is like a tackling machine. In drafts, I was trying to get him in the later rounds, and I punted the tight end or the linebacker position because of which. Myles Garrett, is he dealing with like a foot injury or like a double foot injury heading into today?
Bilateral.
Both feet. He needs surgery on both feet, is what it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a ringing endorsement here. So I would be very cautious about inserting Myles Garrett. I think you can I'd rather, on the safe side, put in somebody like a Carl Granderson than a Myles Garrett this week. But going back to the Cleveland Browns, aside from that, we look at Grant Delpit playing again 45% of the box snaps there. You have to love that. And then, that's pretty much anybody who's just jumping off of the page right now that I think could be very fantasy viable for you. Again, it sucks about the Thibodeau and Brian Burns situation, but they just haven't been producing.
Yep. Burns plays so many snaps that it's one of those situations where, even some week it's going to pay off. We know that Burns just hasn't done it yet, but at some point, he's got limited practice on Friday. Maybe he sits out this week. Something has been bothering him potentially. I didn't read any reports, but who knows? That's the hard thing, trying to figure that out. So jump to the next game real quick. We'll get to a question here in 1 second as well. It's the Chicago Bears at the Indianapolis Colts. Colts are 1-point favorites. It's a 43.5-point game. Keenan Allen is out. Travis Homer is out. Julian Blackmon did return to full practice 3 times this week. Latu didn't practice twice, was limited on Friday. That's something to pay attention to. So there's a couple injuries around. The plug and plays, if you will, Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson's probably still a plug and play for the most part. Outside the top 12 quarterbacks, I don't know too many that you're going to start over him unless you guys disagree. No,
do not
perfect.
agree.
Okay, so John, here I'll start with you. John, you're a Bears fan, aren't you? Kind of. No,
I am a Bears fan from birth because I grew up in Chicago. They're my favorite NFC team. I wish when the ownership sells the team, I guess I'll be more of a fan because I just can't stand what they're doing here. But I do. It is refreshing to see the team and trending in the right direction with a good defense first. The defense is never really the problem in Chicago. Every year, when they finally make the playoffs, it starts snowing outside, magic happens. The defense and special teams has always been the Bears' identity. So yes, I am a Bears fan. I'm a Dolphins fan my whole life, but now because of fantasy football, I'm a Josh Allen fan. So I really can't be a Bills fan because I'm a Dolphins fan my whole life. But my kids call me a traitor. I don't care. It is what it is. So my favorite AFC team now, I guess, is Josh Allen, and my favorite NFC team is the Bears. So we'll leave it at that. Considering
you're also a White Sox fan, you are a glutton for punishment as well as a sadomasochistic type individual. So how much bondage would it take to keep you from putting DeAndre Swift into your lineups this week against a DeForest Buckner-less Indianapolis Colts? Yes, yeah. If you tuned in this morning and you search for bondage, sadomasoch, hey, you turned into the right fantasy show. John, go ahead.
Swift is a pretty damn good player. I think another person that I think is a little bit underrated. But I would probably have him in my wide. I would be pretty happy if I had him in my running back 2 spot in any of my lineups. I would, I'd be okay with that. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I have to start DeAndre Swift this week. It would be okay. I'd be okay with that. Indy's just offensive. I mean, their defensive running game is terrible. So I like Swift. He also gets a lot of passes out of the backfield. So I'm okay with that. He'd probably get about 3 or 4 receptions on top of the workload that he'll get between the tackles. Would you rather start DeAndre Swift or DJ Moore? And you're in, like, just say if you only started 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers, would you start Swift or DJ Moore in that position?
Jorge, you mentioned on a previous show during this week that you think that DJ Moore may operate out of the slot a little bit more this week without Keenan Allen. And the matchup against Kenny Moore seems to be a fruitful one. Knowing that information, are you leaning more over Swift in that scenario, like as a flex play?
100%. I mean, Kenny Moore, is allowing 100% receptions on the season, 11.2 yards after the catch per reception. Hell yeah, give me DJ Moore in this situation.
All righty, Keith. How about Michael Pittman's questionable. As far as we know right now, I don't know what that necessarily translates to in terms of, like, his actual production, because I think he's been questionable to appear in the box score for about 2 weeks now straight. So I guess he's probably leaning towards almost doubtful when it comes to that standpoint. But where are you at? Like, let's say that Pittman does play. He's got the questionable tag, so maybe he's a little bit banged up. Are you comfortable with really any of the wide receivers, knowing Josh Downs potentially could be eased back into play? Give me the breakdown of the Colts wide receiver room. Go.
I mean, I think that Pierce obviously has value because Richardson is so good throwing the ball down the field. And I mean, who would have thought he'd see the kind of target rate that he did the first 2 weeks? It's really bad for people like me that were high on AD Mitchell. I think eventually Mitchell will get into this receiver rotation, but with Downs coming back, I think he's going to be the odd man out on 3 receiver sets. I do think, though, they need Josh Downs bad. What is missing from this offense is the ability to like complete a pass for 5-6 yards, or maybe just a first down, and it not be either a sack, an incomplete pass, or a 70-yard completion. And Josh Downs was, I believe, 7th among wide receivers from the slot last year. He played, I think, top 5 most snaps from that position. And he's really good in yards after the catch, which is what they need. They need somebody that Richardson can get the ball rid of too quickly and then do something, after they make the catch. So I think Downs is really needed. And I'm actually very interested to see what this offense looks like with Downs, because I think that the 3 receivers that they had, like Pittman, is just a really bad fit with Richardson's skill set, unfortunately, for people that have Michael Pittman. Like, it's just not really, Richardson's strengths. Like, he needs to, have these explosive plays that I think both Pierce, and the rookie from Georgia, Wyatt Mitchell from Texas is, better suited for that. So I'm excited to see Downs. I am playing Downs in DFS this week, and I have Downs in a 16-team league, and I'm rolling with them this week. Base wide receiver 3. So
Downs is tricky just because you don't know the rotation that him and AD Mitchell may have in the slot. So one of those things, pay attention. The big play is there. Before we get to the IDP side, I want to shout out a couple of people that are in the chat, and I didn't do it earlier, and I apologize. I won't say first and foremost. I don't want to discredit anybody else, but, he's family. So you start with some family. Preston, if you haven't been over to Fantasy and Frames to read his Flex article yet, I highly encourage you to do so. You're going to hear a lot of the names mentioned in it that we've talked about already. So if you don't believe what Keith, John, Jorge, or myself have to say about it, you want to go straight to the source, despite the fact that he's still repping the Patriots in there. So obviously, maybe there's a little bit of judgment played, but at the same time, quality content over there. We'll do a rapid one-person answer here. John, start 1, flex 1. Drake London, Xavier Worthy, Rashid Shaheed, Zach Moss, Tank Dell. Give me one of those, the start for you out of those 4, 5.
If I say Drake London, are you guys going to kill me here? Because he's just kind of he's more of a possession kind of guy. He's going to get targets. I think I just like Drake London as somebody who's, I want to call him like reliable kind of thing. I do like Drake London a lot here out of these guys. So not a big Zach Moss fan. Tank Dell seems to be the Twitter echo chamber guy to go with this week, but I lead London here.
Okay. Give me a flex now, Jorge.
Rashid Shaheed.
Okay. Keith, do you want to start Tony Pollard or David Montgomery?
No, Pollard. Pollard is my favorite running back this week for DFS. And I think he's a top 5 running back in general. You got, he's seeing like 75% of the Titans' rush attempts. He's getting a 20% target share in the passing game, which didn't have that on my bingo card. And then, I don't think Love's going to play. They haven't ruled him out still yet, right? He's still
but I doubt he plays.
So if he doesn't play, I just don't see Malik Willis and that Packers offense having the ability to get up big. And I think Pollard's going to get like 20 rush attempts. But even if he doesn't, again, 19% target rate in the passing game. So even if they're down, he's still going to be out there and able to score points.
And John, last one, start Jake Ferguson in his return, or Kyle Pitts, the 4th, for some reason, the 4th target option on that team so far.
I don't really get that, man. I don't know what's going on there, but I've already picked London, so I don't know if I can double up. Ferguson's a big part of the Dallas offense, so I'm going to go Ferguson, even though he's been out for a little bit. If he's cleared to play, he's probably the better option here. Until Pitts gets going, I think you just have to go with someone who's more reliable like Ferguson.
All right, Jorge, here's the situation. Knowing John's answer initially was Drake London, and he would like to lean Kyle Pitts, would you rather go Rashid Shaheed and Tank Dell with Kyle Pitts at tight end, or would you stick with Drake London, Rashid Shaheed, and go Ferguson? If you don't want two pieces of the Atlanta offense, that is.
I would go London. I'd go London, Shaheed, and Ferguson. We look at Trenton Simpson, who would be the guy who would be covering over the middle. He's not great in coverage, and I think Ferguson could have a good, welcome back performance this week.
There we go. Albert has a great. Oh, go ahead.
Do you just keep stuffing in Shaheed in your lineup until he starts getting the long ball every week? I mean, what do you do? How long is this going to go for? You just got to ride the wave, right?
Well, we say that. I've been talking about it. That we said the same thing about the Rams all the way back in 2000, the greatest show on turf. The Atlanta Falcons with Kyle Shanahan in 2016, when they came out of the gate scoring 35 points every game, people were like, "This can't sustain." It did. I would ride it, and especially like in DFS, I keep telling people these Saints players are only going to continue to go up. You might as well get onto it. Either it stops. And I don't think that's going to be the week with an Eagles defense that's allowing, I think, the second most points per play and the third most first downs. So,
congratulations to all those people who drafted Derek Carr so late in these drafts.
Amen. Yeah. Kamara is even a bigger winner to me, where it's like I could have got him a million places and I didn't, and I'm an idiot. So.
Right.
Don't say you're an idiot. All you just need to do is, if you listen to our Fourth and Frame show where we chose my guys so far. This is not a victory lap at all, but luckily my guys were Jameson Williams and Alvin Kamara. Not a victory lap. That's a whole victory marathon. I'm going to keep it going until something goes off the rails, which is possibly happen any time. Albert wants to know James Conner or Brian Robinson, half-point PPR. Jorge, you're the Brian Robinson fan. I mean, you're the Commanders fan, so I'm going to make you answer this question because it's
a Brian Robinson fan too.
I love both of those players personally.
Yeah, I love this. I love this question because Brian Robinson does have PPR value, or even have PPR value, and so does, quite frankly, James Conner. So this is a great matchup. So I think I'm going to go with the higher scoring game here, which will be Detroit and Arizona. But I will say Brian Robinson is the only saving grace, I believe, for the Commanders keeping this game close on Monday Night Football. I think this is going to be Bengals just feasting on the Commanders. So give me James Conner.
I have them just like you have, really close to one another. So then I got there. Preston, we said hello. Richard has a question here. It's start three between these guys. Hey, my good. First Devin Singletary in the flex question. About time. All right, start three here, guys. Calvin Ridley. I almost want to say Roddy White. We've talked so much about the Falcons, but that's Rashad White. Would you have started Roddy White? Now, maybe not at 45, but back in the day in that 26, was he there in 2016? Was that was before 2016?
No, he was the one that Ryan's rookie year, he had an unbelievable season with him. And Ryan was kind of a surprise as a rookie. Yeah. Roddy White, man. That was my guy.
All right, Calvin Ridley, Rashad White, Aaron Jones, Jerome Ford, Devin Singletary, full point PPR. Keith, give me one of those options first.
I think you got to go Aaron Jones if it's full point PPR. Volume and just, I mean, Aaron Jones still got it. If you look at the games that he's played and got significant looks going all the way back to the playoffs where he had that great run with Green Bay, Aaron Jones is a baller, and Kevin O'Connell is one of the best offensive play callers in football. So I think that would be my first pick.
Gotcha. John?
Aaron Jones would definitely be my first pick. I'm kind of afraid of Rashad White here. I think they're trying to make this a running back by committee, unfortunately. So the Rashad White owners who reap the benefits of the Baker Mayfield Rashad White connection all last year are not saying they're suffering, but I think winter is coming for that kind of situation where Rashad White was just a plug and play. Aaron Jones is by far my number one pick, and then after that, as much as I like Singletary as my second one here, and like I said, Jerome Ford's definitely in a timeshare right now. I'd probably go Ridley as my second pick.
Yeah, last week went a long way to helping improve my confidence in Ridley. 20% plus target share, getting over 50% of the air yard share. No, I don't see a red zone target yet. So I mean, him scoring the rushing touchdown last week was helpful, but the matchup's a little bit tough, between rotation between Jair and Eric Stokes, but I would lean Calvin Ridley as well when it comes to that right there. So let's Robert Thomas, good morning to you, my friend. Great to see you. Josh, we answered. Damo has a trade question. Domo, I apologize. I have JMO on my mind 24/7. So when I see that, I immediately think of that. He was offered T. Higgins and Javonte for Rashid Shaheed and Rico Dowdle. So in my eyes, I see that as you were offered T. Higgins for Rashid Shaheed and Rico Dowdle, because I don't trust Javonte myself, but maybe I'm mistaken. So would you do that trade? Higgins for Rashid and Dowdle? No. I say no as well. John, you say no as well?
I don't trust. I mean, this is redraft we're talking about now, or I mean, I guess that's what
it looks like that. Yeah. Okay.
Redraft is I'm just not. I have to get myself in that whole redraft mindset for this week instead of long term, and I just Dowdle. This is for this season. No, I'll go Shaheed and Dowdle, but. Yeah, Dynasty, I would flip the opposite just for the Higgins side alone.
Don't forget, Higgins is playing for money, which is a big deal. I expect him to ball this season, the rest of the way.
Game by game, it's a little bit harder to touch that. Right. Long term, Higgins obviously is, I have horse blinders with T. Higgins across this whole trade here whatsoever. But for this season and for this game, yeah, Shaheed and Dowdle, I guess it would be the guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's, here's an IDP question. Charlene been up early, so she's going to. This one, Dorian Williams, Frankie Louvu. I've been on Dorian Williams in a few leagues the last 2 weeks. Jorge, tell me if I'm wrong with this. Frankie Louvu, when he's not asked to rush the passer nearly as much like he was in week 2, his IDP stock skyrockets by comparison because the tackle volume has improved considerably. Dorian Williams, without Terrell Bernard, should be in a less conservative. Balin Spector, who wears the dot, is fine play, but I don't trust the talent as much as I do if it's Terrell Bernard. So, I mean, I lean Dorian Williams because I think that Washington's going to try to, get to Burrow and disrupt that, that passing attack that could take him down. Do you disagree with that?
I don't. And I have Spector and Dorian Williams, ironically, back-to-back in rankings at 33 and 34, and Lou is down to my 55. There's too much uncertainty whether or not he's going to be asked to rush the passer or to play off ball. So, yeah.
Perfect. Well, let's finish up the Chicago-Indianapolis game. On the IDP side of the ball, Jorge, DeMarcus Walker has seen the most snaps of any Chicago pass rusher, if you will, defensive lineman. The productivity hasn't quite been there, but do you think that's an opportunity for potential going forward?
I mean, what you like to see is you like to see the win rate, be, in the double digits, which it is 12.1%. But that pressure rate of 3%, it's one of those things where he's getting past his blockers, but he can't just quite seal the deal. And like you said, fill up those box score stats. Mm-hmm. So maybe he's somebody you bookmark. But crazy we're talking about him and not Montez Sweat at this point of the season. Which it's kind of disappointing for Bears fans on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, there's, there will be a Darrell Taylor had a week, so we've seen that limited snaps and yet production. I'll tell you who's had some production. EJ Speed continues to impress. Like I mentioned last week, that 6 straight games now with 8+ solo tackles. The 10+ tackle streak continues to roll. Are we getting to the point where you're ranking EJ Speed ahead of Zaire Franklin like I am?
Yes. So I have EJ Speed as my 12. I have Franklin as my 23. So yeah, definitely.
There you go. And then go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, especially with, the edge rusher situation being what it is, no DeForest Buckner and EJ Speed playing that Shaq Leonard role. He's going to be asked to play everywhere from blitzing to playing in coverage to playing some off ball. So yeah, just a playmaker all around.
Yep. Levy J Speed there. And we talked earlier about Julian Blackmon returning. could hinder Nick Cross's upside, just simply taking some of the box snaps away. But that's something to monitor because it would be a really excellent thing to see Julian Blackmon back playing, deep and let Nick Cross play up front. Just seem, both those two playmakers on the field is better for the Colts as a whole. Houston Texans at Minnesota Vikings. Houston's 1.5-point favorite. It is a 46-point total, which I guess it could be some fireworks in this game, which is crazy to think, considering Dameon Pierce is out, Joe Mixon's doubtful, trending out, Jordan Addison's out, Ivan Pace and Dallas Turner both are out. Jorge, if we start on the IDP side of the ball, Ivan Pace being out, Blake Cashman with little to no competition, probably be on the field the entire time, of course, with the green dot. How high is Blake Cashman on your linebacker rankings?
Let me pull it up right here. Control find cash. So I have him right now as my 37. If I now hearing the news that Ivan Pace is out, I probably will bump him up to, low end, high end LB3. We look at his production so far this year. Hit or miss, right? He only had 6 tackles in week 1. He had 14 in week 2 and a sack and 3 pass deflections. So opportunity is going to be there on Cashman's side. So yeah, I would feel comfortable starting him.
There you go. Pardon me.
Can I ask an IDP question for you IDP people here? I knew an IDP, I joined one league and I'm just trying, I don't want to really chime in on anything because I don't get it, but is there scoring systems where there could be a one, like a weak side linebacker 1-3, strong side linebacker 1-3, and middle linebacker 1-3, or is it just a linebacker across the board is all just scored the same?
Scored the same.
Okay. Just to clarify for people who are not an IDP yet, yes.
Yeah. Now, if you get really deep in the weeds, there are variant scoring for position, which is like a tight end premium for people that play, where defensive tackles get bonus points for tackles more so than linebackers would, and linebackers get more points for interceptions than a cornerback would. And it levels the playing field and benefits, makes you want to choose a defensive tackle or a cornerback in your league, but it makes it so confusing. It's so much more difficult to try to identify. It's kind of like having with, the different scorings for like half-point PPR, but then the tight end premium is this, wide receivers are 0.75, running backs are 0.49, and, fullbacks are 1.2. You know what I mean? You start throwing too much in, and eventually becomes a damn game at calculus. No one wants to play calculus on Sunday, drinking beer, watching football. I don't want to, at least. I can't speak for everybody.
I kind of like him like a fullback, almost assign the same amount of points like a nose tackle who gets double or triple teamed every play.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where we're at. We're starting next year's nose tackle, defensive tackle, or fullback league. It's going to be another Kyle Juszczyk against Puna Ford, not Puna Ford. He's a defense tackle. Vita Vea. There we go. 17 points apiece. Jorge, Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson. The battle consists at 2 sacks apiece. But on the Minnesota Vikings side, any pass rushers you're thinking of? And then which linebacker in Houston do you like the best?
So Andrew Van Ginkel has just been playing like a man possessed coming over from Miami. He's my DL 10 on the week. I think he keeps this hot streak going. So I'm all aboard the Van Ginkel bandwagon here. You mentioned Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. I mean, if this is not a Danielle Hunter matchup going against his old team, I don't know what is, right? So that's pretty high on that.
There we go. That's it. All right, guys. Offensive side of the ball. No Joe Mixon, no Dameon Pierce. Just how high? Cam Akers in this matchup. RB2 for you, Keith, or are you still treading a little bit lightly and simply suggesting him as a flex play?
I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't see it. He scares me. I've been burned by Cam Akers way too many times. And I mean, if you're desperate, you got to do what you got to do. But he's not highly ranked among my running backs. I know normally volume matters. To me, I wouldn't be shocked if Akers fumbles on the second possession, and then the Texans play different running backs the rest of the game. Seriously, it would not surprise me.
Yeah, Akers or Chuba Hubbard?
I'd rather have Hubbard. I really do not like Akers.
Okay. All right. Akers or Chase Brown?
Oh, I would rather have Akers there.
There you go. That we're talking. All right. So I think they find that point. I had it initially. I was going to say him or Zach Charbonnet, but I know your answer. Considering what you just said, what's the point of going through those exercises if I already know the outcome?
Right.
John, go ahead.
I have Akers in my flex spot this week. I don't trust Dario Gumwale to be anything more than just a guy to come in and give a puff. So I don't. Excuse me. I don't like Akers as my RB2, but just like he said, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. There's a lot of injuries this week. A lot of guys not playing. A lot of timeshares. If somebody's going to get a work, that somebody's going to be able to handle as many snaps they can give them because out of necessity, you kind of have to go with that player. So I'll take him as my flex for sure. I'd be really, really scared to put him as my running back too, but you got to do what you got to do.
Well, there you go, Jorge. You can answer it for Jonathan. He wants to know Akers versus Alexander Madison or Deontay Foreman, full point PPR.
Give me Akers. I know it's gross, but I got to roll with Akers here.
The Akers train is going on the tracks. Look at this.
Not hard whenever you put two grapes on the rails and it's not going to exactly stop it. And Alexander Madison or Deontay Foreman. So, Andrew says, good morning to you. He has a 14 team full point PPR. Right. He's wanting to know, this is the question that I was kind of, the name that would come up if we said Anthony Richardson earlier is Baker Mayfield over Anthony Richardson. The way Baker's been playing, Jorge, he's playing Godwin this week. Do you stack Baker to go with Godwin, or do you still stick with AR?
Man, I mean, you love the rushing upside here. I would go. It's crazy. This is a tough question. I'd still go Anthony Richards here just because of the rushing upside.
Is this 4-point or 16 or 6-point touchdown?
Which does have an impact because But then again, we showed Baker last week. He's got the rushing chops. 2
weeks in a row. He's got at least 30 yards, I think, rushing the first week. And last week he had like 20 and a touchdown. So I mean,
what about the flex play here, Keith? Alec Pierce over Christian Kirk.
If it's a full PPR,
it is.
I think I'm still trusting Kirk. Like I know it's been really rough. I get it.
Yep.
But
too.
I mean, it's still been very early in the season. The Jaguars and Browns are a very good defense. Let's not forget that. And I do think that better days are ahead for Kirk. And I would assume with how much he's been sacked the first 2 weeks, they're going to work on getting the ball out of his hand quicker. And that is the kind of passes that are most likely to go to Christian Kirk. So especially with Evan Ingram out again, I would lean Kirk.
The only person who can compete with Anthony Richardson's poor pass completion rate is Trevor Lawrence. So hopefully both of those two get on track when it comes to, passing accuracy, and it would benefit everybody. Real quickly, jumping back to the Houston-Minnesota game. We know that it's Justin Jefferson. We've talked a lot about Aaron Jones so far. Ty Chandler's a name, of course, that I always like to pay attention to just to see if there was a workload situation. If something were to ever happen to Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler would be a must pickup. As far as the wide receiver room here, with Houston, that's the tricky part, guys. It's Nico, I think, is the consensus no-brainer for many of us, if not all of us. And we're trying to chop up the breakdown between Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. What order do you put Dell and Diggs in this week, Jorge?
It's crazy because if I remember the stats correctly, Tank Dell has been running the most routes for the Houston Texans, yet has been getting the least amount of targets there, or at least has been not producing as much. I think this has to be the coming up party for Tank Dell. If you're a Tank Dell manager, if he doesn't produce this week, I'm a little bit concerned, to be honest with you, going forward. What was the first part of your question again?
It was really just a exclamation that Nico Collins is fantastic, and just spreading my love for Nico. I do have a question for you guys on the other side of the ball, though, in a super deep type league. Jalen Naylor who's impressed us so far. How likely is Jalen Naylor to be able to support a super flex? Or Keith, here, how about a DFS question from Jalen Naylor? Is that someone that you're using a dart throw type approach on?
Oh, I love Naylor and MME entries this week. 4,400. Scored obviously a touchdown week 1, and then with Addison out week 2, and again Addison's out this week. Huge uptick in routes, obviously, and still ended up scoring more points as well for DFS and PPR. And I mean, you just would have to assume that the Texans are going to try to take Jefferson away. I mean, good luck, but that's going to be their main objective, and that's going to leave Naylor with a lot more. I also want to just real quickly on the Texans side. I'm just fascinated by this matchup because Brian Flores has done an unbelievable job, calling with the defensive plans the last 2 weeks, and obviously the Texans' offense is very good. The Vikings like to bring the heat. Typically, the Texans have and CJ Stroud have excelled against that. To Jorge's point about Tank Dell, though, last year when both Collins and Dell were on the field versus cover 3, actually Dell's numbers were a little bit better. I don't know what Diggs does to that equation, and that's why I'm not like super confident to play Dell this week in DFS. But I do think that I would rather play Dell at 5,200 than Collins at 7,300. When you just would have to spoon Brian Flores, one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, is going to do everything he can to make them go somewhere other than Nico Collins to move the ball and beat them. Yeah,
you mentioned the like that 2 high cover 3 between the two. Diggs has been 3rd in the target order with only like a 12.5% target share, and that's courtesy of Debro over at Fantasy Pros. So I think we know that order 1, 2, and 3 there. I think that kind of wraps up the Houston at Minnesota matchup. We'll quickly jump through Philadelphia and New Orleans. I don't know how quickly we can go through two teams that have a point total of 49.5, with New Orleans at home favored by 2.5. Show of hands. 5 weeks ago, if we had said New Orleans is going to be a 2.5 point favorite against the Eagles in week 3, 1, was Saquon hurt? Was Hurts hurt? Did the Eagles protest and say they weren't going to play the game, or did New Orleans go out and reincarnate Drew Brees and Marcus Colston? And golly, we'd have to go pretty deep in the weeds to find out how they're going to pull this off. Jeremy Shockey, huh?
Yeah, that's taking it back, right?
Good Lord, that's super. Man, didn't hear that name yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Realistically, that was probably a hypothetical question. I don't know why I paused to wait for an answer, because no one's going to really truly answer that. It's crazy. New Orleans, Clint Kubiak, obviously at this point right now, coordinator of the year. AJ Brown is out. CJ Gardner-Johnson didn't practice twice this week on New Orleans. Kalen Saunders, defense tackle, is out. Taysom Hill, limited practice, chest injury, 2 weeks in a row now. Are no doubt plays, as far as I'm concerned, are Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. I think Devonta Smith and Alvin Kamara. Devonta Smith, I guess you can say, is not a must start, but he's a must start. Is Derek Carr starting to become the must start category? And I'll read some names and we'll go around and see what you guys think. Derek Carr or Jared Goff, John?
Carr.
Derek Carr or Jaden Daniels, Jorge?
Carr.
Derek Carr or Baker Mayfield, Keith?
You talking about this week or moving forward?
This week.
God, it's tough because the Broncos. But so I'll go Carr.
John, Derek Carr or who's a good matchup? How about this? Derek Carr or Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, name recognition was going to get me slapped in the PP if I say anything besides Patrick Mahomes here. But I understand this is it's all about fantasy points, man. And Derek Carr's just been killing it. So I Mahomes is a better, I think, all around quarterback as far as making plays happen, elevating his team across the board. But man, I fantasy wise, unfortunately, I'm probably gonna have to go Derek Carr.
I don't think that it's crazy.
It's not unfortunate.
Being a Chiefs fan.
Just want to add, Eagles defense last in forcing 3 and outs so far this season. They played Green Bay, and my Falcons. Remember how Atlanta looked week 1, and then how much better that passing offense looked week 2 facing the Eagles. Philly allows the 4th most points per drive. And the Saints offense has punted once so far this season. They're scoring points on 70% of their possessions, touchdowns on 50%. Carr's only thrown it 39 times and has over 440 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 6 when you include his touchdown on the ground. That's a touchdown on 13% of his throws. And he's facing the Eagles defense again that's allowed over 500 yards and 4 passing touchdowns through 2 weeks. Carr is a smash play. And in DFS, I feel like you should start building a lot of lineups with either Carr Kamara, Carr Olave, or Carr Shaheed, because they're all very reasonably priced still for the points they've been putting up and with a very plus matchup in a dome, by the way.
Would you triple stack the Saints this week, Ken? Keith, or is that ludicrous to say?
No, and MME, I think that's brilliant. Like Kevin started all of his basically MME lineups this week with Carr, Barkley, Kamara, Devontae Smith, and Olave, and filled in from there. And I don't think it's crazy because this game and the Detroit, Arizona are the most likely that are going to just get friggin' crazy. I mean, I think, was it 49.5 here and then 51.5 for the Lions and Cardinal.
I'm intrigued to watch the matchup that's the biggest in terms of dictating how this game can go from the offensive side of New Orleans is if Vic Fangio can truly find a scheme to break down the New Orleans Saints offensive line, which if you look at the beginning of the season, I mean, PFF ranked them like 28th or somewhere around, like I think everybody did. It didn't take a PFF to realize the Saints without Ryan Ramczyk and where they were at to be a deficient offensive line, but he's incorporated a ton of, checks and all kinds of different schemes to help keep Derek Carr upright, which is huge. And
from last in motion pre-snap to first in motion pre-snap. Last in play action passes last season to first in play action passes through 2 games. So to your point, I think that Kubiak deserves a ton of credit.
Yeah, and so there, I saw Charlene had a question about Zamir White or James Conner. I can't stand that at this point.
Tailored for you.
Did you see Pierce's comment Friday too? That he wants to get Zamir 20 plus touches.
That's just, that's flip flopping. So this week,
but he had a bad first week, and then the second week, I was shocked to see Zamir was on the field for like 70% of the snaps. So
yeah, he said that at the beginning of the season. He's our early down back, and then which gave people concern. He's still not I don't think he's a good running back. It is what it is. I think that, but opportunity will still supersede talent at the running back position with a coach that wants to give you the ball when circumstance is there. And the Raiders should be ahead in this game. I still lean James Conner by quite a bit, but I'm intrigued to hear if you guys think it's Zamir White in this matchup. John, start with you.
In a non-PPR league, I'll take Zamir White for sure. In a PPR league, I'm probably shot. I'm going Connor.
I'm guessing there's at least a half-point PPR. Charlene, you can let us know there, but you got
a half-point or full-point PPR. I'll go James Conner for sure. In a it's a standard league, I would go Zamir White probably.
And I would agree with that. I really would.
The Lions' run defense is just, it's ridiculous. Now, part of it, again, to your point, Nate, they're so bad. They've been giving up, I think now it's down to only 330 yards per game over their last 9 games. But there's somebody that you can, torch. And also the other problem for Connor is running QBs have just feasted versus this Lions defense. If you go back the last 2 seasons, look at Justin Fields, Patrick Mahomes. Basically any QB that can run Daniel Jones, they've had around 50 yards and a touchdown. So very good for Kyler Murray in fantasy, not necessarily great for James Conner.
Yep. And full point PPR where we go. I do want to say hello to our good friend, Mr. Scampers. Good morning, guys and gals. Happy football day. Happy football day to you too. He has the hard-hitting questions that I want to answer, which is the bacon, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwich or the chorizo and egg breakfast burrito, full point per ripper, which is the bathroom break you'll have to take afterwards, I'm guessing, for either, is assuming what PPR means. It's what it means in the Midwest. I'm not sure how it is in other neck of the woods. I'm leading the chorizo and egg breakfast burrito myself.
Oh God.
You guys are crazy. First of all, number one, I'm not the biggest because I'm guessing how would you want that egg on the breakfast sandwich? It's probably one of those like over easy or hard, whatever.
I like scrambled personally.
Oh,
like,
that's all I want. Yeah.
I want scrambled eggs, bacon, and yeah, to me that's oh my God, it's so good. I'm not a big fan of like the burritos or the wraps and stuff for breakfast. I just don't like those in general. I know they're less messy, but I don't care. I'm looking for the best meal, not necessarily what's going to make the least mess.
April 15th, 1974. I was born in this world 50 years ago to answer this question. Okay. This is pretty much my whole life goal was to answer questions about this kind of breakfast food. I'm a breakfast guy. All right. So I'm the only fat guy that doesn't like bacon. I'm not a bacon fan.
Ooh.
And it's got, especially when you go to a restaurant, like my son gets these Baconators from Wendy's, and it's that slimy, greasy,
I hate it.
bacon. It's so
it's got to be crispy.
It's got to be crispy. Yep. A, it's got to be crispy. B, I don't want bacon. I just don't want bacon at all. I like the sausage. You know who's got an underrated sandwich is Burger King has the 2 for $6 sandwich. It is absolutely phenomenal. It is that's one of my favorite ones.
But the croissant is too soggy for me. I need something that's a little bit more crispy for the croissant. I hear you, but it's good value. 7
seconds after I get the sandwich, it's already gone. So it really doesn't get me soggy for me. So it's not. But I'm not a chorizo fan. And chorizo it's really greasy, and especially if you're in a car, like going somewhere, it gets really messy really fast because it drips all over the place. So and I'm not a big chorizo fan. I'm going to go with the sausage, egg, and cheese, whether it be from McDonald's or Burger King or
whoa, that's not the question. You can't say I'd rather have Amon Ra over Alec Pierce and Rashid Shaheed. That's not the question.
Full point for restroom stop here. I'm going to say
there it is.
I'm going to go with the bacon, egg, and cheese breakfast just because I know what's going to happen with the chorizo.
Oh man, that's great. Thank you, Scampers, for the content we all really came here for. But a question. Oh, sorry, Jorge. Hey, hands off. Right. You have to be here on time. Coffee's for early closers is what they say, but in this case, it's be here early. So
I'm sorry.
This is not a point per restroom break. This will one of those could give you indigestion if you choose it wrong. Rashid Shaheed, Jalen Waddle, and then I'm guessing those are the two starts, and then Worthy or Reed, or is it choose one? What do you got, Ivy Sosi? Is it? Oh, man, I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry. I apologize. I hate getting people's names wrong. Keith, you should have said that because
I don't ever get anybody's name. Yeah, I don't care. I mean, I can't. It's not my fault. I'm a country bumpkin. I'm sorry. Like I don't do names.
What do you guys think? Let's assume that it's you're choosing one of those four.
I mean, to me, it would be Shaheed pretty easily, just because Worthy. You said, right, you think they are going to throw a lot, but that probably means like Kelsey, right, is going to be the guy and Rice that are peppered in the Chiefs game, because you think that they're not going to like pound the rock. They're going to use the pass for the run play. That would be a lot of Kelsey. So that scares me about Worthy. Reed, again, you got Malik Willis. So basically you're relying on rush attempts, and they're not going to throw it probably more than 15, 20 times the game. And then you're getting down to Waddle with Skylar Thompson or Shaheed, who I know has only gotten 5 targets each game, but look at what he's done with them. And he has arguably the best coordinator right now of scheming people wide open. So I would, again, until these Saints stop scoring a gazillion points, and the Eagles is a great matchup. If you look at what their defense has done the first 2 weeks, I would keep rolling with these guys.
That's what they've done going back to last year. They were a target for all passing offenses. The Eagles were last year. Jorge, do you disagree with Rashid Shaheed in this scenario?
Nope. Nope, I do not.
John, do you disagree?
It's not that I disagree. I just think that Waddle is such a special player that anything could turn into, a ton of fantasy points for Waddle here. And the other players, it's almost like just a best ball lineup at that point in time besides Waddle. It's so hard to not put Waddle in your lineup every week if you have him. It's considering where you drafted him at too. You almost have to, but man, I do see the Shaheed being probably the favorite here.
Yeah, I had that same dilemma, and I hate that I go into it thinking, who am I going to beat myself up over the most, not putting Shaheed in my lineup or not putting Waddle in my lineup. And it'd probably be not putting Waddle in, but man, not this week. I just want to see Skylar Thompson in a full week with what that offense looks like. I think it's going to be Devin Achane as far as the offense going around him. But
if you sit Waddle and he scores 2 touchdowns, like over 100 yards, just because, you're like, yeah, I knew this,
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's where we'll be. But going back to the Philadelphia New Orleans game, it's hard to think of a scenario where there's been 80 points scored in 2 weeks and it hasn't been Chris Olave incorporated into that. Jorge, is this week the week that Chris Olave managers finally go, oh, thank God? Because I'm sure after last week and the week before, box score chasing, if you don't watch the game, has been that's the point per restroom nauseation when you see 80 points and no Olave and all Shaheed and Kamara. Is this the week?
We've seen an increase in target volume going Olave's way the past 2 weeks. I think this is going to be a good barometer for the New Orleans Saints against the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think they're going to need to get all their playmakers involved. So, yeah, I think this is going to be an Olave resurgence week.
What was this a good deal for Preston Evans, John? He got T. Higgins for Michael Pittman.
Yes, getting to get Higgins for Pittman. Yes, Pittman just doesn't. He just feels like he doesn't belong. It's like that song, like one of these things just doesn't belong here. Pittman just, I don't know what the story is with that, but yeah, I mean, if JT was here, he would tell you all about the Alec Pierce. Me and JT made a trade last year for Trey McBride for Alec Pierce, like straight up. And I'm like, that was right before the season started. So I read the benefits of that one for sure. But Alec Pierce outscored Trey McBride week 1 in our scoring format. So he let me know about that. He's winning this year. So that's
we'll see long term. That doesn't have the makings of working that way.
No,
Keith, I know your opinion on Pittman, but I want to know your opinion on this is with the Cooper Kupp injury, Deontay Johnson or Brandon Cooks. I think you're probably going to lean Deontay Johnson based off everything that we've talked about so far. Correct?
Yeah. And not to mention the fact that it looked like Tolbert may have grabbed the number 2 receiving option. And now Ferguson's coming back, which I think Ferguson actually is the number 2 receiving option. So at best, you're looking at Cooks being the 3rd option. In a game, I do think there'll be some points scored to where Deontay Johnson, I'm very excited to see because a lot of people were very high on him. I was not one of them, but he's going to have a quarterback that can get him the ball this week if he gets open. And again, Carolina's offensive line 5th right now in pass block win rate. So they've been given time. It's just Bryce has not been hitting them.
Yep. And that we'll get to Dallas here shortly. As far as the Philadelphia side, Dallas Goedert is about as safe a boring play as there is at tight end, but unfortunately, boring and safe is what we probably need right now in this volatility. Right. We saw him go to Goedert last week when it was crunch time. No A.J. Brown, no real true threat in the passing game outside of Devontae Smith and Saquon from the backfield. But that's the offensive side. Jorge, on the defensive side, if you named who are the 2 defensive linemen, both guys that we've talked about a little bit, one in Yaya Diaby and this other guy, Josh Sweat, the only 2 pass rushers in the NFL so far with 10-plus pressures, but yet no sacks. Is this the week Josh Sweat gets that first sack against this New Orleans offensive line that we thought was going to be porous, but they have figured it out? Vic Fangio figured it out for him?
I can't trust Josh Sweat until I see some production. I get the pressures and the opportunity is there. I think Derek Carr is just going to get the ball out quickly or give it to Kamara. I think the other guy who has 10-plus pressures is Yaya Diaby, and
it is.
And neither of these guys have done anything, so I can't really recommend starting them this week. At the linebacker position, though, Bond, just holy crap. This guy, I mean, he didn't have as explosive a week 2 as he had in week 1, but I think he's the real deal here. I'm actually fading, though, the linebackers for the Saints, and it hurts me to say this, but like DeMario Davis, he's outside my top 25. Pete Werner the same way. Just not huge fans. Ironically, though, let me pull it up right here. Tyrann Mathieu has been playing pretty lights out for the New Orleans Saints, kind of having a resurgence there. The past 2 weeks, 4 tackles, a fumble recovery. Then last week, 3 solo tackles. We're talking about 14 and 12.5 points in Fantasy Pros IDP scoring. So solid production there from a fantasy standpoint. Carl Granderson, defensive lineman for the Saints, had a bounce back week last week, so really high on him. Here's the one that really sucks. I don't know if sucks is the right word, but I find very interesting being a Commanders fan, and that is Chase Young's win rate and pressure rate has been pretty good this year. Which, where the hell was this in Washington? But the production just hasn't led there in the box score situation. I mean, if this continues, he's bound to get some play. I'm not saying start him this week. He's far, 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 far removed from being startable. But like Josh Sweat, like Diaby, the metrics are there in terms of efficiency, just not the production.
Yep. He had that, especially week 1 out the gate looked like, hey, this is going to be an indicator of more snaps. Wasn't quite there yet, but time will tell. It's only 2 weeks in. We forget that, it's a long season, but it's not a long season. That's the thing. Sometimes you can't be the shit or get off the pot doesn't always apply. It seems to be the trend for this show right now as far as the themes, but it is what it is. Here is a non-shitty scenario as far as choosing one, because all of which I have decently high. And that's EJ Speed, Blake Cashman, Tyrell Dodson, Eric Kendricks, or Andrew Van Ginkel. Needs one without knowing the specific scoring. And let's just say it's a standard kind of scoring across the board, decently heavy tackle volume, not super big play dependent. I think I lead EJ Speed. You?
Yeah, same way.
I would probably go Speed, almost in that exact order he has it, I think, is exactly how I would do it. Speed, Cashman. I could interchange Dodson for Cashman just because, the way as much zone Seattle runs, it's helpful for the tackle volume. And that's another thing, John, for a lot of people that are new to IDP. Looking that deep is hard, but there's certain things that benefit. It's kind of like if you look on the offensive side, teams that run a lot of short to intermediate quick hitters, it's going to benefit the PPR guys that will see heavy target volume, whereas like zone coverage on defense benefits increased tackle volume. They have a higher percentage of tackles with that linebacking core on average. Doesn't always work, but that's one of those scenarios. So there you go, Will. Hopefully you the rest of your team must be pretty good if you're having to bench Cashman, Dodson, Kendricks, and Van Ginkel there. Scampers has a question for you, John. He wants to know, it's full point PPR. Likely or Jordan Whittington? No tight end premium.
Yeah, Whittington. I'm going to go Whittington here.
I think I will too.
It just seems like the week where he's going to be needed more than likely. Will the offense is likely had, he's on everybody's mind because that awesome week 1, but he kind of went back to reality last week, and I think Whittington's just going to have. He may get like 8 or 9 targets this week, so I'm going to go Whittington.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be an exciting week. It scares me a little bit. What?
Can I interject here for a second?
Yeah.
Just want to thank everybody for tuning in so far this morning. We really appreciate you across all our social media channels. If you wouldn't mind heading over to our YouTube channel and hitting that subscribe button, we crossed the 1,200 sub threshold on Friday. So thank you all for your continued support here at Fantasy and Frames. We're at 12:03. Let's get to 12:10 today if we can. We really appreciate the subscription, and we'll continue pumping out awesome fantasy football content for you all.
We will, and we'll start that next round with the Los Angeles Chargers at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh's 3.5-point favorite. It is a 34.5-point total. This could be a gross game for sure. Mm-hmm. Junior Colson is out for the Chargers at linebacker. Justin Herbert has 2 DNPs in a limited practice. I don't know where it's at. I think I saw a little note that said they haven't made a declarative statement on who's going to start yet today, per se. I think it's probably leaning good old
Herbert. No,
Herbert. Thank you. I'm trying to read, talk, and look for things that I saw earlier. But regardless, we'll pay attention to that. Josh Palmer did not practice again. Isaac Samalu is out. Troy Fontenot, who they drafted to be a guard, has been filling in at offensive tackle pretty decent for him. Those are the injuries right there. They all have impact a little bit. But, John, on the Chargers side, looks like J.K. Dobbins is running away from Gus Bus right now. Is J.K. Dobbins firmly in your play? And obviously the answer is probably going to be yes, but where's Gus falling to in your overall rankings now? Do you even consider him anymore as touchdown upside?
No, not I don't. I know that he's good. I've always been a Gus Edwards fan. I'll put it that way. But I mean, if he gets probably 6 carries today, I'd probably be, that would be where I think he's at. 6 carries, probably no receptions. So no, he doesn't fit in my rankings at all at anything. He's not even a flex play in my eyes, to be honest with you.
Meow. With Jorge, is Najee about to get lapped by Jalen Warren healthy now? Meow, for the first time.
I'm sorry. Were you going back to this reference to Super Troopers right here by Mr. Scampers? I can't pull over any further. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
What are you saying to me, Meow?
Right now. Yeah, I think Najee had the smash matchup last week against Denver. I obviously was pretty high on him. That backfired in my face big time. I'm not falling for it again. Yeah, I think Jalen Warren is going to usurp that position, or at least they negate each other's timeshare to the point where you're not starting out there, or confident starting out there.
Right, exactly. I don't know how any of the Chargers pass catchers I really feel comfortable with this week. Maybe you guys disagree there. I just feel like this Pittsburgh pass rush is going to be nasty. The Chargers are going to just run the ball as much as they possibly can. It's going to be that, low scoring game like we expect. But the Pittsburgh side, if there's some offense to be had, George Pickens has been one of those guys that we know the volume hasn't necessarily been like as high as some people predicted, myself included, but he's had a lot of callback plays. He's had a lot of situations that were not his fault necessarily. I think, is this one of those games where he finally breaks out just a little bit despite the scoring ineptitude that this game has in store for us, John?
I'm going to start off with, I think Najee Harris still has his job and still will be the man going forward. So I'm going to start off with that. All right. Right from the get go. And then Pickens. Yeah. Like you said, he's had a couple big plays that were pass interference calls. He got, called back on penalties. I think Pickens is in the, probably in the area for a pretty decent game. I'm not that I'm afraid of the Chargers defense or anything like that, but I don't see Pickens going nuts, but I can see him getting your standard, like probably, let's say 9 to 12. You're hoping for a touchdown, 9 to 12 fantasy points, nothing special, nothing flashy, nothing crazy, but he would be my probably wide receiver 3 with a touchdown upside because he is like the main target on this offense. So.
Yep. Can I add just real quick with Pickens, 124 yards and a touchdown have been negated by penalties already this year, and 80% of his snaps have gone against Patrick Surtain and A.J. Terrell. Better days are ahead for George Pickens, and I think this is the first game that the Steelers will not control throughout, and they're going to have to throw it a little bit more, and Pickens is getting a huge target volume when Fields throws. So if that passing number goes up, you can expect more targets to Pickens, to John's point. I really like Pickens this week, and I love him moving forward. He's somebody I'm targeting, trying to trade for in a lot of leagues. Yes.
If my rankings of Pickens is any indicator right now, I have him as my wide receiver 26. So, I mean, not that is like some glowing endorsement that I think he's bound to blow up, but considering he's a wide receiver like 50 on the season, I think that says a lot for that. And quick, the fantasy football water boy. If you guys happen to see our little Twitter thing, I found a little tool that I really enjoy using now. It's that little big head integrator, and it was in with the Association of the Water Boy. So the FF Water Boy has a question. He has a full PPR. I don't know why I said full PPR. PPR, need to. T. Higgins, Demarcus Robinson, Khalil Shakir, Cam Akers, Jerome Ford. I think T. Higgins has, from previous questions, has been our consensus kind of, we're trusting in T. I think that goes without saying. But the number 2 still here is up for debate. I think Demarcus Robinson and Cam Akers are probably our two that we've discussed the most, but I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. Keith, if you just have to pick one outside of T. Higgins, who's it going to be?
I love Khalil Shakir. I still think he is the top receiving option in this Buffalo offense. And I mean, again, last year he was Josh Allen was first in QBR rating when targeting Khalil Shakir. And if you look through 2 games, he's been the most productive in fantasy of his pass catchers and the most targeted. So, I like Shakir. Now, are they saying Higgins is included in this as well?
Well, yeah, but I'm including Higgins on our behalf as being the other one.
Right. Yeah. So then Shakir would be my other guy out of the 4.
Yeah, I speak on behalf of you 3 as well.
I agree with you. I just wanted to make sure we're
Jorge, do you have a different opinion besides Shakir, confidently enough that you want to interject on here? Or are we good with Higgins and Shakir?
We're good with Higgins and Shakir.
John, do you
want to take Akers? Would I be in trouble?
No, you won't be in trouble.
I think Cam Akers is going to get a lot more. Shakir's kind of a boomer bust guy. I love Shakir. He gets those. He's supposed to be the number 1 target. But any one of these games could be a running back, a cook game again. So I don't know what's going to happen. I just think Akers is going to get a majority of the workload this week. So as far as fantasy production is concerned, I'd probably go with I'd probably lean Cam Akers this week. So I love Shakir. He's on every one of my teams. Like we always talked about before, Jerome Ford's in a complete timeshare at this point in time. As much Jerome Ford as I own, it really hurts me, pains me to watch this happen. But I think Cam Akers is probably the better bet than Khalil Shakir this week. More safe bet anyway. Better floor, right. I would say.
Yeah, the figure I assumed at the beginning of the season is that there will be 4 pass catchers in Buffalo that do not exceed 22% target share, and it's going to just cannibalize each other. It's going to be big boom weeks one week, bust the next. So far, that's kind of come true. I've been wrong both weeks, so that's a fun little game to play internally. But let's go to a more uplifting scenario that doesn't involve me making bad decisions. Tootsie Pop. Good morning, Rachel. 1 IDP flex. Alex Anzalone, who suffered a concussion last week, so is questionable, trending towards doubtful, so we can eliminate him. Denzel Perryman, who has an uptick of snaps, most likely because of the injury to Junior Colson. Jared Verse, who's been fantastic, and Cam Hayward. Jorge, you choose one. Denzel Perryman or Jared Verse, I'm guessing, is between your 2 options.
I love Jared Verse, and I don't think Trent Williams is as untouchable as we think, giving up 5 pressures on the season, sack, a quarterback hit. I like Jared Verse in his upside this week. I have him in my top 15 currently around fantasy frames.
Dang, yeah. I don't have necessarily anything, opposite. I like what Jared Verse has done as well. I think Perryman's a safer play probably, but shoot for the upside, right? Shoot for the upside. John, I will say it's been a pleasure having you so far. I know you probably got to get running. You didn't have much. You might have been working overnight for all I know, and you need to get to bed, but
I have about 25 people coming over for the games today. So nice. a lot of home league homies. I run a bunch of home leagues in the Chicagoland area. So we get pizzas, watch the games, just to have a great time. So it's a weekly thing. And we
hold on a second. I don't see. I don't see the invite.
It's a long ride from Missouri, right? Or Kansas City, or wherever you're at.
St. Louis,
Missouri, right? St. Louis, yeah. It's about a 5-hour drive. I will be I'll be hunting in about the next end right before the weekend before Thanksgiving. I'll be down by the cranapple orchards or cranberry orchards down there in Southern Illinois for white-tailed deer. But I'll be somewhere near you, but that's still probably a 2-hour drive for you.
It is about 2 hours. I went to school down there near Carbondale. You're probably going to the somewhere around Carbondale, Murfreesboro area.
Yeah. It's great. Yep. We go to a couple good restaurants around there. Go drink some beers all night long. Get up at 4 a.m, sleep by a tree, and see squirrels running in rustle leaves all day long instead of any deer to shoot. So it's a great go down there, bring our loaded guns, and come back with our loaded guns, and don't see anything besides squirrels. So
exactly the hunting trip that we all take, or the fishing trip. Gotcha.
Exactly. Guys, thanks for having me. This is if you have not subscribed to Fantasy and Frames yet, you subscribe, and your feed will just be filled with IDP, with betting, with fantasy stuff, with everything across the board. Joining Fantasy and Frames is probably the best move I've ever made in my life. Thanks for having me, guys, and I really appreciate these Sunday morning shows. I'll jump on whenever I can.
We appreciate you, buddy.
So he actually also has a TikTok series over on our Fantasy and Frames account called Flexums, where he gives you his favorite flex plays of the week. So make sure you head over to TikTok, subscribe to Fantasy and Frames there, and check out John's Flexums each week.
I like that. Look at that. Man sleeps in a little bit and has some energy. Good job. Maybe that's
right?
I'm just kidding. From the the IDP side, quickly, obviously we just touched on the fact that Junior Colson being out, so Dion Henley and Denzel Perryman will see an increase in snaps. Don't know if that will lead to substantial production for those two linebackers that I don't think are great, but opportunity usually breeds success. Joey Bosa's had a back issue that's been lingering. I personally would take Joey Bosa out of my lineups just because I don't trust that re-aggravation. And if you look at the other side, opposing linebackers have had great success against the Chargers rushing attack. I think that means that, hey, guess what? Patrick Queen could actually be in for a productive week, Jorge. I don't like Patrick Queen that much without Roquan. But, again, linebacker with, Peyton Wilson, I hope starts taking over because Landon Roberts is, how I feel about that. So anything to add to that matchup there, my friend?
I would say those who drafted Derwin James as their number one DB, I wouldn't say, because it's Derwin James, you're inserting Derwin James into your lineup. He hasn't been as clutch here, his fantasy points have not been produced. I'd rather start somebody like a Deshaun Elliott for the Steelers, who, I would rather have Brisker or Matthew, a lot of other people than Derwin James. So don't be scared to sit Derwin James just because he was and has been, in the past, super fantasy relevant.
Gotcha. I know there's one question out there, Steven, and Bayou Bengal Fantasy Network. Thank you for the support. Smash the like button, y'all. Absolutely.
Met them at the expo. Just fantastic people.
Yeah, 100%. So, but real quick, let's run through some of these other, because Denver, Tampa Bay presents a situation that I think many people are going to avoid. That's the Denver offense for the most part. But Baron Browning's out, Luke Gedicke's out, Kalijah Cansey's out, Antoine Winfield's out, Vita Vea is doubtful. All of these injuries across Tampa and Denver, more Tampa as far as impactful to the Denver offense, lead to thinking is Javonte Williams a potential play, knowing that for some reason they continue to give him the ball heavily. It's inefficient, but is this the volume will supersede and pay out or play out, Keith?
He's another one of those guys I just can't trust. There's literally guys I'd pick off waivers that I would rather play probably at running back than Javonte Williams this week. I love the Bucs side of the ball in this game, both for DFS and fantasy. Baker has been unreal versus the blitz, which Broncos blitz at one of the highest rates in the league, and Chris Godwin feasts against wide receivers. And for DFS, people are going to be leery probably to play Godwin because they're going to look at that ranking. I believe the Broncos are either first or second. Look at who the Broncos have played thus far. They played the Steelers, like teams that have not really thrown the ball that much. That's a big reason for that ranking. And they have really struggled for receivers in the slot. And Godwin is somebody who just feasts historically versus the blitz. Baker so far, I think it's 23 pass attempts against the blitz. 22 have been on target. So I love that. And then if you're looking on the Broncos side, I do like both Reynolds and I think it's Veal. Devon Veal is how you pronounce it. As DFS values. Like if you're looking for MME, because I think the Broncos are going to be down, they're going to be throwing. Reynolds is their most targeted receiver, most receptions, and Veal, had a huge target share week 1, and that could happen again if the Bucs are able to get after Bo Nix, which I think they will be able to.
Yeah, Veal coming off injury, obviously something. If you're going to pivot one way or the other, I would probably pivot towards Reynolds. More DFS than redraft plays right there. Charlene's keeping her fingers crossed for Javonte. I'd cross them toes, your eyes, if you can cross your ears somehow as well. But that's just, that's my disposed notion towards Javonte. He could have production. I still would dismiss him which is probably a poor way to go about it, but it is.
I liked him as a late, so I'm somebody who's the opposite, where I like Javonte both coming in to the NFL, out of college, and liked him this year in drafts where he was going for like best balls and redrafts. I thought there was real value there because the volume. And from what I've seen the first 2 weeks, I'm all. It's kind of like with Bryce Young. Like you just got to sometimes pivot and be like, I'm wrong, and I don't feel very good about it moving forward.
Here's two guys that are not too far away from where Javonte's at in many rankings. Najee or Carson Steele, full point PPR. Jorge?
Wow. Steele.
Yeah.
Steele.
I'm not huge on any of the Kansas City running back waivers when they went through, but I do think that there's the better scoring out matchup is the Kansas City Atlanta game. I'll take a piece of the potential scoring pie with Carson Steele over a 38-point Charger Pittsburgh game and lean that way. So Keith touched on Baker, Chris Godwin. Mike Evans versus Pat Surtain is a little concerning. I'm not going to say I'm going to bench him or anything, but he was, one of my little fades as far as if you had better choices, which it's Mike Evans. You don't have better choices. Don't be stupid. Just don't, temper expectations. Or in DFS, don't pay up for Mike Evans, or he's probably real low owned, and maybe you can. There's smarter people than me when it comes to the DFS and how to and why to play Mike Evans. I think it's going to be a difficult matchup. On the defensive side, Jorge, Baron Browning suffered a foot injury. Nick Benito can come in. Nick Benito last year was constantly in my plays, my waiver wire articles, because his pass rush metrics were fantastic. But yet here we are again, another season in, and he's trailing behind other players. But his benefit could be there. What do you think of Nick Benito this week in a matchup against Tampa?
I would like to see more efficiency out of him in terms of win rate and pressure rate. I still think the play here for edge or defensive lineman is still Jonathan Cooper, although fantasy wise, that's still, there's something left to be desired there at the edge position. Going to linebacker, what's that?
Probably it's Zach Allen as production wise right now for Denver.
Right, that's a good point. That's a very good point. 26.9% win rate, 34.6% pressure rate. Good Lord. Absolutely. Heading over to linebacker, I'm officially done. Nate. I should have been done years ago, but he just kept on coming back, and I'm not going to let him suck me in anymore. I'm done with Cody Barton. He has done nothing for you fantasy-wise. So it's the Alex Singleton show. PJ Locke, who I thought was going to have a good, continuation from the end of last season, just has not been producing. On the flip side, for Tampa Bay, like I mentioned earlier, Yaya Diaby has been getting the pressures, but the production has not been there. He had 7.5 sacks last year. Not liking that at all. You look at Joe Tryon Shoyinka, he is what he is. Linebacker. Now this is where things get kind of interesting, and I'm kind of gonna buck the trend of snap percentages and whatnot. And I have him ranked really high. He's been eating into KJ Britt's snap percentage, and we look at last week. His tackle efficiency was 20%, although he only played in 52% of total snaps. Servassier Dennis, second year out of Pitt. Love him. I think this is a situation where get ahead of waiver wires, get ahead of everything if you haven't already. Get him into your lineups. We saw Jordan Whitehead play majority of box snaps there at safety. No Antoine Winfield. Is it Christian Eisen or Eisen, or I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, but not somebody that I'm putting a lot of stock in after one good performance here, or a couple of good performances. You're muted.
Yeah, I had to. That's good to know. What I was saying is Green Bay is at Tennessee. This is a Tennessee 2.5 point favored game. It's It's a 38-point implied point total. The Jordan Love conversation, still questionable. Don't know 100%. Tajay Spears got a full practice in Friday. So those are the two concerns that we're monitoring going into the week. I don't suspect Jordan Love will play. 38 total points definitely paints a dark day for fantasy assets outside of Josh Jacobs and Tony Pollard, maybe Calvin Ridley. Until Jordan Love's back, any of you guys, and we're not talking DFS right now with this particular case, Keith, but as a wide receiver 1 or 2, are you trusting any of the Green Bay pass catchers?
No. I mean, unfortunately, it's just a bad situation until Love comes back. That's another guys in redraft leagues, like, try to go out and trade for Packer wide receivers, whichever one you're the highest on, if it's Dobbs, Reed, whoever, because I think people are, maybe going to sell off on them because, they're disappointed, but it's going to get much better with Love coming back. And it looks like he's going to be there sooner than later. Yep.
That's kind of what I'm thinking right there. And honestly, I hate to say it, but that's about the pieces that I want from this matchup on the defensive side. I love the Tennessee Titans defense as a defensive streamer. Keith and I both have built a couple DraftKings lineups, which as soon as we move through some of these, we're going to build a cash lineup for you all today. I have Tennessee's defense pretty high in many of them. I think they'll slow down Josh Jacobs. Tavondre Sweat's been great. And they actually have the ability to get to Malik Wilson, at least ruffle some feathers, maybe get a turnover. Speaking of ruffling some feathers, the Titans have allowed the 6th highest pressure rate. I'm bigger on Rashawn Gary. He hasn't been the most exciting so far, Jorge, but I think this is the week that he actually gets to Will Levis. Javon Bullard, we saw his snaps drop down from where he was at 100%. It's something worth monitoring, but Ernest Jones, he's back to 100%. Ernest Jones back in your lineup?
Absolutely. He played phenomenally. Let me pull up his, I guess you don't have to pull up his numbers. He is reasserting himself as the top linebacker for IDP. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah. And like with right here, we have the DraftKings up. We'll go through, we'll talk and build at the same time, because I think that's really good for this, this exercise. It kind of builds in a little bit of maybe a duality of sorts, if you will, in that we go to Carolina and Las Vegas. In a cash game, Keith, we've talked a lot about Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton, is he more valuable in cash or MMEs?
I actually think he's more valuable in cash. I mean, I understand trying to do it in MME, and that would make more sense typically. But if you like me believe that Dalton can at least put up 15 to 20 points, which I believe he can. And I also like Deontay Johnson this week. You're getting a quarterback who you think can score 15, 20 points and his number one target for under 10K. That then allows you to do literally whatever you want with the rest of your cash game lineup.
Is there any chance that you are taking Andy Dalton naked? Or are you pairing him with Deontay or Adam Thielen every time?
No, I mean, you could pair him naked. I don't hate that either, because we don't really know for sure what Panther is going to be, the number one target. I will also say too, when I say yes for cash, bigger cash games. Like for instance, I'm doing $200 and a $50 single entry this week. The only lineup that I'm rolling with the Dalton Johnson stack, there is 4,400 entries, because it's going to be very different. It's going to be very unique. And I still like it. Right. So I would not be using that. For instance, like the other two have like 400 entries and 500 entries. I would not run with Dalton in a small single entry field.
Okay. And so like the one we have that Jorge's building right now, I don't know how many entries there are.
You know how many people? Yeah. Cause honestly, if you're just talking for cash, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jorge.
It's 960 people. So not
okay. So I would do Kyler Murray. I think Murray is the safest play at QB this week. And for cash, the fact that he's ran for 50 yards each of the last 2 weeks, Detroit again is averaging like 330 yards allowed per game over the last, I think it's 8 games going back to last season. And I was serious about the rushing deal. Baker had 30 yards in a score versus his team. You go back to December or in 2023, Fields in 2 games, 161 yards and a touchdown. Mahomes in September 2023, 45 yards. Fields in 2022 had over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Daniel Jones in 2022 versus defense, 50 yards, a touchdown. Hurts in 2022, 90 yards, a touchdown. Yep. When they play running QBs, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because they get pressure and they just run, but they're picking up big numbers. So then I would either stack Murray with McBride, who's high owned, or Harrison, who I actually really like doing because Harrison is under 2% projected ownership this week, which is really shocking if you look what he did last week. And this is just as fruitful of a matchup for him as last.
Okay, so before we build the rest of the team, though, let's finish this Carolina Las Vegas game and talk a little bit on the Las Vegas side. Gardner Minshew, surprisingly effective so far. He's actually done well in both matchups from a passing perspective as far as efficiency, yards per attempt. I don't know if they're going to let him, loose, or if they're just going to lean on the run against this bad Panthers team.
They're throwing at one of the highest rates in the league. So, I mean, it wouldn't be that surprising if they do let him loose, right?
Right. And now that's game script dependence to some degree, because they had to come back in the game against Baltimore. So they were leaning, a lot heavier pass towards the end, especially focused on Brock Bowers and Devontae Adams, which are our only two pieces of that Vegas pie that we want from the passing game, correct?
Right.
Okay.
I think so.
Yes.
And Zamir White, I'm going to say it, is a decent play. Is he a decent play in a cash game or an MME? Do you feel comfortable putting Zamir White in, for instance, this lineup we're doing right here? Would you put Zamir White in?
I don't, only because for 500 more, I can have Tony Pollard, and for 700 more, I can have Jordan Mason. And we've already started to make the line a little unique by having Harrison, who's 2% owned. And I think that there's receiver options in the 5,000 range and tight ends and the 3-4 range that you can do to fill out the rest of your lineup to where you can kind of spend a little bit at running back. I think the running backs this week, there's only like 5 guys basically I'm playing. It's Mason, A-Chain, Kamara, and Pollard.
And I think I would agree with many of those names. I think many would agree us on the defensive side right now that no Devon Diablo, Robert Spillane's in for a good week. The volume proved evident, Jorge, last week that Carolina linebackers, the Carolina defense, or the offense, is so bad that their linebackers have seen plenty of volume. Maybe Andy Dalton changes that just a little bit. If you had to choose between one of the two linebackers in Carolina, which are you leaning between them?
I'm going Shaq Thompson.
Okay.
Jersey Jewel has been doing good things here, but Shaq Thompson, 10 tackles week 1, 15 tackles week 2, just stud.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It really does. I don't think the volume will be as much as last week. I don't think both have 10 plus tackles, but there's a good chance that maybe Vegas does just run a ton. Maybe Zamir White gets 25 carries and it's both of them just absolutely eat. I think if you choose one of the two, you're in a good line. Max Crosby is my if we had a sack lunch episode, it would be Max Crosby, despite the fact that the pass rush win rate has been so good. Let's be honest, I don't think they faced a Max Crosby style player. And I like that specific matchup, especially not quite so fleet of foot Andy Dalton. And then on this side, I like the Andy Dalton to Adam Thielen combo. I thought that was one that last year we saw, Adam Thielen was the wide receiver 2 or 3 on the week when Dalton played. Nate Hobbs should get his hands full with them. Cornerback leagues, or even as a defensive back, Nate Hobbs could probably move up your rankings. And that takes us through that matchup there. So we'll go to the Miami game because one of the players that we want to talk about who's going to be in many MME lineups and cash lineups is Devin Achane. In our particular build right here, we're leaning against that because Tony Pollard for 6,000 against Green Bay, who've been decimated against the run. Tyjae Spears banged up. I think collectively, at least I do, and I know Keith agrees and Jorge's agreeing with us now, is that is a stellar scenario for only 6,000. And the route runs last week were like 33-30 or maybe over the season. I'm sorry. And I think that just screams more opportunity for Tony Pollard, who's going to get in there. and actually see more routes run, his floor just continues to go up. So we'll go back to the DraftKings team, and Keith. We have Kyler Murray. Oh no, we don't. We have almost a full team now. So I apologize. I didn't know that.
I'm sorry. I'm just filling in people. If you guys agree or disagree, just let me know as I'm filling in people in the lineup.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Because well, I was just going to say, I like to try to figure out who we want to build and then fill them in from there, but that's okay. Or we can do it this way. I don't have any problem with Williams or Ferguson this week. I have been, to me, playing Mason, Ayuk is not a slam. If you don't play Mason, I feel like Ayuk is a slam in cash. Like you need to have one of those two pieces with the San Francisco issues at pass catcher. Let's see here. Take Moore and Ferguson out for a second. I want to see what we have because I don't have any problem with Jameson Williams versus that Arizona at all. I just want to see what that does to our salary by taking those two guys out. All right.
17.
All right. So defense, let's go ahead and go Titans. I like that versus the Packers matchup. And you have Tony Pollard. So that game script fits, right? Where you have Pollard obviously will run a lot if the Titans are able to control and keep the Packers in trouble. Yep. That bumps us up to 5K. The tight end I really like, especially when you're not using Achane, is Jonnu Smith, 3,400. He saw 6 targets last week. The Miami coaching staff has said that they want to get the ball more to Jonnu Smith this week.
Good.
Yeah, well, he's great after the catch, and that's good for a young quarterback like Skylar Thompson, who's not great at throwing it down the field. So I like that. And now that gets us into the range where I would probably go is, do you guys like JSN more, or would you rather play like a Deontay Johnson, Jordan Whittington? Like we can go different areas with that third receiver, and then that can kind of make the decision for the last flex.
I kind of like JSN, to be honest.
I do too, a lot this week, because I think that Charbonnet being their main running back is going to force them to throw a lot. Because let's be honest, right, Nate, he can't run the ball. Like that's not what he does. So Seattle's going to have to throw. So I like that. And that leaves us 6,200. So if you'll go to the flex, Jorge, we can kind of figure it out from there. Because the rest of this lineup I really like. And I know I have Harrison, who's less than 2% owned. I know Jonnu Smith is less than 2% owned. So even though this is not a huge field, we are already different. Like we're going to be different than a majority of people with 2 people less than 2% owned. So then the question is, where do you guys want to go here? Do we want
look at this first page here, and I don't see a name. I mean, it's easy to look and be like, oh, Trey McBride. Do we have a triple stack with him, Harrison, and Kyler? I don't know if I would want to go that route. And I don't know if I see any other names on this. I don't see any names on this page right here that you have up, Jorge, that screams to me. In fact, actually it screams continue to go down, and let's see this next grouping, which gives me the same feeling. Man, you and I both have Pickens love a lot.
I don't mind though, like adding Ayuk to this lineup at all, because he is 6,200. That would put us right at 50K. And yes, that would be a lot of, obviously you got both the number one running option and pass catching option for the Niners, but the Rams are really beat up on defense, right?
Very much.
I think that they're going to want to get Ayuk going because we know that Samuel's out for a few weeks. Kittle, I mean, we hope it's just 1 week if you're a Kittle owner, but if it's more, they're probably going to do that. From this page, to me, the 3 options would be, because I'm with you, I don't want to overdo McBride and Harrison. I would rather have 1 or 2 with Kyler, because the main reason I like Kyler so much this week is his rushing upside. I would look either David Montgomery, I would look Charbonnet, or I would look Brandon Ayuk. Those would be my 3 top choices, from the guys in our price range for this flex. But the rest of this lineup, I love. I know St. Brown is actually a little bit better play this week just because, how much they blitz, and he gets, you saw last week. But Jameson still saw 11 targets last week against a team that blitzed a lot. Like they have proven they're going to get the ball to him. And this Cardinals secondary ranks 31st. On PFF, they were 32nd preseason. And that makes me feel really good about my Pollard and Titans defense that I have everywhere.
Love DFS is out, Jorge, in case you didn't see that.
So which of those guys you got? I'm fine with any of those 3 because, Montgomery, if you think the Lions are going to try to run the ball, I think that Charbonnet for his PPR upside, because again, I think that Seattle's going to have to throw with him being their main running back, or you go Ayuk because again, the target volume is going to be outrageous and the Rams aren't good versus the pass. I'm good with any of those three.
The only other scenarios, if you scroll down a little bit more, Jorge.
Yeah.
You start getting one more. I'm intrigued to see if I want a piece of the New Orleans pass game.
Oh, you want to go Shaheed?
I don't know if I want to go Shaheed or Olave because I get the feeling Olave is going to be solo owned.
Go to Shaheed. We might be able to get
there,
up to
53.
Kamara potentially. We're going to be, I think, just a smidge short too.
What's Kamara?
I was going to say he's 75. Like if we wanted to swap out Mason there, but I think that's not going to get us there, is it? Nope.
So I mean, do you feel comfortable if you're not doing a New Orleans like a stack where you have just one piece and you're gambling between it being Shaheed or Olave?
I'm good with Rashid. We have that much money left on the table. We would then need to make an upgrade at either Williams or, in my opinion, JSN would be, or actually you know what? If you like Ferguson a lot better, we could spend up to Ferguson instead of Smith too, which I'm okay with that as well.
I actually like Bowers more than, and I don't think we could be able to do that, could we?
Yeah, we could put Bowers in at flex, and then actually,
I meant it tied in. I think I thought he was like 4,500, which we still wouldn't have.
He's 55, which is not bad. I mean, that's really for his target volume. Put that in, or 5,400. Put that in, Jorge, and then let's see what that does to our flex and what range we would be in. Because trust me, you're not going to have any argument. Now exit out of Shaheed for a second. Let's see. It'll tell you then automatically what you have left to spend.
Yeah. Which is 42. So
42. So then Whittington, who I really like this week.
Yeah.
Is right there.
I mean, if we're,
I really do not hate that. Whittington's in actually one of my cash lineups, one of those $100 or $50 single entries. I believe the slot receiver always feasts in the Rams offense. And he played almost all the snaps after Kupp went out in the slot. He played in every snap once Kupp went out in that game. So he's going to be involved. They use him in the rushing as well. I don't hate that at all.
Before you guys get any further, let's answer Angie's question. Good morning, Angie, by the way. Full point PPR. She needs two of these 3 or 4. Two of the 3. Zamir White, Zach Moss, Calvin Ridley.
Ridley for sure, because it's full point PPR, I think.
Yeah,
got number one target.
Moss is my odd man out in this situation, but
I think I would lean that way too.
Yep, agreed.
Another Zamir White recommendation from Nate this week. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I think that lineup,
I like it.
I do really too. I feel like we have the piece of the two games that I do think can be exploitable in San Francisco and the Rams on both sides, because both defenses, I mean, don't get me wrong, San Francisco is the better defense on paper, but still, all we're caring about is quick little hitting things to Whittington. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side is San Francisco doing what we know they can do. I mean, we talked about this yesterday or Friday night. Jorge, DK prop has Jordan Mason's rushing line at like 94 yards. That is ridiculous for them. And like he said, they're so much smarter than we are. I mean, not that much smarter, but quite a bit smarter. And they have it at 90 something. That just seems like an easy yes in that scenario. We'll continue to talk about that lineup as we go through some of the players here. The Miami and Seattle game, we said Raheem Mostert's doubtful, trending towards out. Jerome Baker is doubtful, trending towards out. George Fant is out. Uchenna Nwosu is out. And Kenneth Walker is doubtful, trending towards out. Unless any of those have changed over the last 12 hours, that's where we stand. I think that's the way it's going to be, is all those guys will be out for this game. I'm high on Geno Smith this week. I think Geno can be a really nice plug and play if you're in a situation where you don't trust your starting quarterback. Jorge, is there any concern with Geno going into this week if in a pinch, or it's definitely super flex you're starting no matter what?
I like Geno. I think he is moving back into the form we saw him have a couple of years ago. because they're utilizing the weapons properly. Last year, Waldron just didn't. We were waiting for the JSN breakout, and it never happened. You got to love what they're doing in Seattle now. And to be honest with you, I'm gonna push back a little bit. James Cook lit up this Miami defense last week running the ball. I think Charbonnet, even though he has that PPR upset, I think there's you can have a little bit more faith on him on the ground this week, given the soft run defense.
But hasn't that been like a theme of his when he's been the starter? Is like he's averaged like right at or under 4 yards per carry. I mean, it's been pretty rough.
You're right. I mean, we go back to last year, and that being the case. But I think I have to pull up his metrics right here. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I do believe he is. Anyhow, I like his multifaceted nature in this offense, and I think he can produce for fantasy managers.
No, I mean, I like him for fantasy because of his PPR upside. I just mean that I think they're going to throw a ton with him in there, just like they did last week, because they're not going to be able to move the ball consistently.
You're right. 2.3 is no bueno. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. 5% missed tackle rate, 2 yards after contact per attempt. Those don't scream, crazy upside, but 96% of the snaps last week does. I mean, we know his efficiency was nowhere last week, and he was the RB8. So I'm comfortable with having, if in a pinch, you need to start him, as long as it's a full point PPR. Half point, I would be on a little more, pins and needles, even though I know it's not that much of a separation. I just think that most of his production will come on check downs and through the passing game. Tyreek, Devin Achane, I think both are in my I can't take either one of those two out of my lineup, especially, Achane. But Tyreek is scary for people, but you're leaving him in. Jalen Waddle, we've talked a lot about today so far. I think that's probably one of the most polarizing names on the slate with Skylar Thompson. If you have better options, Jorge, I mean, I know you want to start him. The question then becomes, what's a better option? And you start getting into that wide receiver, low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3 for where many will have Jalen Waddle at. I look at some names like Jalen Waddle or Christian Kirk. What do you lean?
I would go Christian Kirk. I trust Trevor Lawrence better than I do Skylar Thompson to get on the ball.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. What about this one? This is a sneaky, nasty one. Jalen Waddle or Jaden Reed?
Waddle. I think I'm the same.
You go Waddle or Reed?
Yeah, it's slightly. I mean, I don't love either one of them. Reed you get the upside of his rushing attempts, but I just think that Waddle is so good after the catch and somebody that can, take a 2-yard play and turn it into something big. I would probably lean him.
Yep. And we talked about JSN. He's definitely entering into our weekly, not must start per se, but wide receiver 3 flex every week with the potential for wide receiver 2 if the target volume stays there. And DK is going to be DK. Jorge on the IDP side, Boye Mafe is second in the NFL with 15 pressures. Boye Mafe probably stays in your lineup all the time, correct?
Yeah, he just unbelievable. DL 15 for me this week. Yep.
Nice. At linebacker, sneaky play with Jerome Baker injury. Tyrese Knight saw the majority of the snaps last week. We think he's going to fit into a full-time role. Seattle has shown that potential. I wouldn't be shocked to see Jerome Baker try to play against his former team, but I don't think he's going to. Is Tyrese Knight someone that you may recommend for the deepest of deep linebacker spots, say like as a linebacker 3 for people?
Yeah, you're banking on upside at this point, right? After half a game performance, basically. I'd rather take the floor with Dotson, who also had a productive league last week. Although the tackle efficiency wasn't as high as Knight's, he still got you the production and has been the stable floor linebacker.
Gotcha, guys. What's crazy is we talk about these garbage matchups and we spend more time on it, and we get to a team or a game like Detroit at Arizona. Detroit's a 3-point road favorite at Arizona, 51.5 point over. Alex Anzalone with a concussion, limited practices. Greg Dortch got a limited practice on Friday, which he's got the questionable tag. That's a tricky scenario because I love Greg Dortch in this matchup, Keith. If he's out, does that mean that you lean is Michael Wilson a potential hey, or does that just mean they're going to funnel more to McBride and MHJ?
The problem is Wilson does not fare well against the kind of defense that the Lions run. Dortch is by far their best slot receiver versus man, to where Wilson has really thrived versus zone, whether you look at his yardage or routes per route run, all that stuff. So to me, I actually think Harrison and McBride would end up being moved to the slot if Dortch does miss, whether, they line the tight up in the slot or Harrison, and it just means it's going to be more funneled through them. And I hate Dortch not playing, because Dortch would have been somebody that I would have been, playing in a ton of DFS cash games. But even if he does play now with the injury concern and everything, I don't think I can spend on him because he's 4,600. He's not that great of a value. I'd rather take Whittington at 4,200 than him.
I'm right there with you. A little update through Adam Schefter. Some of the actives today are Justin Herbert, Michael Pittman, Tajay Spears, CJ Gardner-Johnson. Some notable inactives are Jordan Love, Russell Wilson, Roman Wilson, and Joshua Palmer. Back to the Detroit-Arizona game.
Guys, I'm out of here. I'm sorry, but I gotta go.
You got it, buddy. Nope, go take care of business, man. Appreciate you.
And y'all are the best. We'll talk soon.
You got it. Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
That was Keith Fleming. Obviously, if you don't follow any of Keith's work, change that immediately. Him and Joe Matz on their DFS picks have been just rock solid for years now. And honestly, I say it should have won me a lot more money than it has, but scared money don't make money. And I've had scared money constantly. Jonathan Mateo wants to know if we rate parlays, and I will say I love to take a look at it, and let's take all look at it together, because this is interesting. Let's start with number one. I'll be the first to admit, I think parlays are most notable money losers by a whole, and that's understandable. I try to preach that to my kids and everybody too, but it's the most exciting. And you know what? A couple bucks here and there is what it is. This isn't a public service announcement to try to get you to stop doing parlays. Bet all you want. Vote yes on I think Amendment 2 in Missouri for sports betting too, by the way. If we can push that narrative, or hey, I don't know if you want me taking a political agenda here, but yeah, get it here.
Yeah, it's football related.
All right, so Kyler Murray over 33.5 rushing yards. Daniel Jones under 184 yards passing. Godwin over 39.5 receiving yards. Derrick Henry over 49.5 rushing. Saquon over 49.5 rushing. And Ayuk over 49.5 receiving. I, too, like taking the overs on that. Any of those stand out to you, Jorge, that you would say no?
I would say no. I mean, the one I'm the most skeptical about is actually Godwin this week. Believe it or not, I think he has a tougher matchup going against Devin Witherspoon. But I think that looks good. I like it.
Okay, I do too. I mean, and Kyler Murray, that number is scary, because it's, for any quarterback to have that high of a rushing prop always is like, well, there's reason to pause. But dating back, I mean, as far as we want to go, like even to 2022, Kyler he constantly go ahead.
It's not outside their own possibility. Week 1, 57 rushing yards. Week 2, 59 rushing yards. Trying to get away from Aiden Hutchinson is going to be a chore. So I
like it.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with that, because there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A third of his games in 2022 were over 50 yards as well. So Yeah, I don't mind that, Jonathan. I hope that hits here, and then man's gonna be rich. Just remember us when you're inherently wealthy, Jonathan. If these all are one, I'm assuming these are split up. Ayuk over 8 receiving over 8 targets, Kamara to score a touchdown, Adams over basically 69.5 receiving yards, Mason over 16 fantasy points, Rice over 49.5 receiving yards, and Baker over 10 rush. I like every single one of them. The only one that I would maybe shy away is the Ayuk over 8. Is it 8 targets or receptions? If it's just targets, I'm cool with it. And it says targets.
I think I'd go the under, but not by much, on Jordan Mason getting 16. I just feel like Minnesota is going to try and bottle up Mason and kind of force Purdy to force feed Ayuk targets here.
You mean the Rams?
Excuse me, the Rams. Yeah, sorry.
And that is tough. 16 is right there. I mean, if you get 90 yards rushing and a touchdown, that's 15, and that's assuming he has no passing work. So that's a tough one. But I do like the parlay questions. Obviously, I have no problem answering, going over. I don't like it because I feel like we're spending people's money. But hey, you know what? I hope you win. Let us know how it goes. If you had to bet on anything, Jorge, that there's going to be fireworks in this game in Detroit and Arizona, most likely, Jared Goff has been, dare I say, bad so far. And I was way wrong on that. But I think it's a get-right game, correct?
I agree. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, the pass rush will struggle. I think the secondary is weak. I'm confident in recommending Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Kyler, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, Sam Laporta. I'm confident recommending Jameson Williams at this point. Where is Jameson as far as your recommendation standpoint going?
Pretty high with Jameson Williams. So I'm okay there.
Welcome to the team. The Chargers or the Raiders defense. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Haley. They brought my coffee. Shout out to Haley's Atlanta Falcons tonight. If you know that there is a fight in the Markham household, it is because she has become a Falcons fan ignorantly. And
she's a Kirk Cousins fan, I think is what I heard.
She is a Kirk Cousins fan, but she's I'm not wearing that. Stupid. No, you won't let. What's worse? All right, you pick here. Pick.
You're never going to be able to wear Raiders in this house. I don't care who you think you are. The Raiders, boo.
Look, I got the Raiders when I was in Vegas. I was in Vegas for our draft, and I picked it up at the airport.
Max Crosby there, so
and doing that. So, all right, yeah, I'm going to say thank you guys. I'm taking the Raiders defense here against the Chargers, despite what we think of Andy Dalton. I still think that Max Crosby is just going to absolutely put so much pressure that we're going to force Dalton into some mistakes. And, yeah, I know, Charlie. Hey, it's a hat. It's not that I'm rooting for the Raiders. I like the design of the hat. It's a cool, hey, it is what it is. Start Higgins over or Mark Cooper. Higgins for me, for sure.
Yep. Or as Chuck Norris would say.
Thank you, Chuck Norris. Thank you. We talked about Greg Dortch. If he plays, love the great spot. Still don't want to trust him coming off an injury and re-aggravation pretty high on that matchup. Defensive side of the ball, we talked about, Aiden Hutchinson is a freak. We're going to start Aiden Hutchinson. There's no question about that. There's nobody on the Arizona defensive side that I really like outside of Kazir?
Kazir and Buddha.
Baker? There you go.
Those are the only two. Not even Jalen Thompson.
No, I agree with that. But on the Detroit side, with Alex Anzalone, is Jack Campbell entering your decent play scenario for you?
I'm sorry, was he declared out or he just is coming off of the concussion?
He wasn't declared out, but he's been questionable all week. And yeah. I don't know if he cleared or concussion protocol is tricky. There's no doubt about that because it's not really like they don't get a ton of information out for people at any given time. It's not like, hey, he's progressing good. we will. Problem is, we just won't know. But he traveled with the team, which is a good sign. But if you saw the actual play, you would say, "Oh man, he ain't playing." I don't know how that's because Derek Barnes absolutely destroyed him, and Alex Anzalone gets it's nasty. So yeah, I would lean against Anzalone. I would probably, you know what that tells me? I'm not starting any one of the Detroit linebackers. You?
If I had to pick one, it obviously would be Campbell.
You don't have to pick one.
Okay, fine. I'm not going to pick one. I will. I'll tell you who I will pick on this Lions defense. Give me Brian Branch, converted corner to slot to safety this year. Just been playing lights out. 7 tackles, 3 pass deflections week 1, 6 tackles, 2 PDs, an interception week 2, 16.3 IDP points using Fantasy Pro scoring. Sign me up.
I'm right there with you. Love me some Brian Branch. Baltimore, 1-point favorites on the road at Dallas, 47.5 point over. What? You say yay?
Yeah, I was saying yay. Yeah.
It's all right. We can have, no. My wife won't let me wear a Raiders hat for no reason. Your wife likes the Cowboys. Hey, we might have outkicked our coverage, but they're not perfect. Clearly, we know that. So, all right. Jorge, are you looking at the show sheet right now by chance?
I am looking at the show sheet right now.
We have a game. It's I want you to pronounce the person's name at the top. He's an offensive guard. And pronounce it now. Go. No hesitation.
Malasala Amuve La.
I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that is by far the most difficult name in football right now. That name looks like Malasala Amuvea Lawulu. I want someone to let me know if someone knows how to pronounce it properly. Give us a holler. All right, in this game, Lamar Jackson, CeeDee Lamb are definitely must plays. Dak, I think, is set to have a great game against this Baltimore secondary. You think this is a rebound game for Dak, who's kind of been a little bit off, I would say, to start the season?
Yeah, he gets all his weapons back. I think it's a good opportunity for him to do that. Yeah.
Perfect. How about Zay Flowers? We talked a little bit about Zay earlier. And from the volume side, I think that Zay is going to be in our lineups, as a number 2, number 3 option. But I want to know about the number 2 or number 3 option over in Dallas now, and tell me why it's Jalen Tolbert and not Brandon Cooks.
Well, you wrote about him in the plays and fades this week. Even in deeper leagues, he's a definite play. 11 targets, the 17 to CDs, has a higher reception percentage. He is being looked by Dak his way. So, yeah, I 100% agree. Tolbert is asserting himself as this wide receiver 2 for Dallas.
There we go. And Jake Ferguson, we've talked about so far up until now. Good plug in from the return. I think, brighter days are ahead from him. I think he's probably the real number 2 target option. But as far as wide receivers go, Jalen Tolbert. Right. How about defensive side, Jorge? Did you know that Odafe Owe at home has been an absolute monster?
I did not know that.
He has been. He has 11.5 of his career 15.5 sacks at home. You like him as a pass rush option for you in against Dallas this week?
I'm not going to be. I know that that's a interesting stat here. Yeah, sure. I guess let's put it at that. I'm not confident.
That's okay. You don't have to be confident. I say from my IDP rankings, which aren't perfect. We know that they're never great.
He had a big week last week. That's the thing. Like week 1, he only got you 4 tackles. Last week, he got you 2.5 sacks. So it's really the sacks that are going to bump up there. And so I have him as my DL 38. So I guess I'm not too high on him. So there we go.
No, I have him as in the 30s. So or high 20s, 28. So it's not like I'm out of this world on him, but I do think that, in deeper leagues for defensive linemen, Odafe Owe is someone I'm paying attention to. In even shallower leagues, Trenton Simpson is nearing a full-time role and someone that I believe should start garnering some more attention. You agree?
the opportunity is there. I just need to see more production there, but he's on the right track to being playable.
Are you sitting down? Yes, you are. You are. I might be fading Kyle Hamilton going forward. I don't like it. He's now, instead of being, he's such a good player that I know, I mean, it's a different defensive coordinator, but still, Kyle Hamilton's still the same player. I worry that him being predominantly in the slot takes away just those the stable floor, which we saw last year was kind of rocky. It was more of a cobblestone road, more so than a regular road, asphalt. But is it asphalt? I think it doesn't matter. Okay, you're right. Whatever. Gotcha. I'm not a civil engineer, so. But I will say, is my concern warranted?
Yeah, it is warranted. And to be honest with you, when I'm ranking my defensive backs, I never thought in a million years that I'd have Derwin James at 29 and Kyle Hamilton at 33.
Holy moly.
I'm not high on them. Well, look, he's gotten 3 tackles week 1, 6 tackles week 2. Just, I need to look at his box utilization percentage here real quickly. If you just hang on. I'm assuming it is not what we'd like to call.
Who? Kyle Hamilton?
Yes.
No, it's not. It's because it's all slot. I mean, granted, that can mean somewhat box, but it's no. I mean, he just hasn't. It's been,
and it sucks because we've been waiting so long for him to finally be that traditional box safety, and Mike McDonald finally got him there last year, and now we're back to him being everywhere on the field, and it's like, God damn it!
I know. That's a fair and warranted conversation. Didn't think we'd be having a conversation. I knew we'd have at some point was this Dallas Cowboy linebacker rotation that we have. And week 1, we saw, your boy DeMarvion Overshown start to creep into playing time and then take him back. Gotcha, bitch. And now it's basically Eric Kendricks only. And that's the way I'm looking at it. You?
I actually like Overshown this week. I think he is the perfect athletic sideline linebacker that's going to help get to Lamar Jackson if he does scramble.
Okay, well, there you go. So I hope that the snaps play, and maybe he has the efficiency even if the snaps are down again. Right. That was Damone Clark's thing as well, though. He had the speed at LSU, and he showed it last year. I mean, so both. It's the battle, you and I, buddy. My Damone Clark versus your DeMarvion Overshown. And one of us will be a loser. Hopefully not both of us, but maybe both of us will be winners. For this matchup, no. I don't want to trust 50. I don't want to trust less than 60% snaps for both players. That's what I think is going to happen. And then it just turns into which way did Lamar, on which down did Damone Clark get in versus Overshown. But we'll talk about this at a future date. I'm not prepared to do so quite yet. Let's go to Los Angeles, where the Rams host the 49ers, who are 6.5 point favorites, 43.5 point over under. George Kittle is out. Debo's out. Cooper Kupp is out. We know Jordan Mason is in a smash situation. Let me ask you this question I have for one of my teams, Jorge, selfishly speaking. I have choose 3 of these 4, 2 running backs and 1 flex spot. I have Bijan, Gibbs, Jordan Mason, Alvin Kamara.
This is PPR?
Yep.
I would do Kamara, definitely.
Who do you start Kamara over? Bijan, Gibbs, or Mason?
I start Kamara over Mason.
Okie dokie. That's what I'm going to do. Because week 1, week 2, I did the same thing. Or I did the opposite. I started Mason over Kamara, and we know how that turned out. Not good, Bob. not good. But that's it. So hopefully some guys in my league that whoever I'm playing will rue the day that I asked for Jorge Edwards' advice and I went on to victory. So there we go. All right. Kyron Williams, offensive line concerns with the Rams. You think there's enough check down and passing volume just for him to not let you down entirely?
I hope so, because if we're looking at it from a rushing standpoint, he's just above Zach Charbonnet in yards per attempt with 2.5 yards per attempt on the season. So we're hoping that we get some receiving work out of Kyron Williams this week.
Yep. I think that's pretty much what's going to support any of his floor is that passing volume. So here's a chance is there a chance, I guess I should say, that instead of being a Jordan Mason smash game, that Kyle Shanahan actually lets Brock Purdy just pick apart this Rams secondary. Purdy, by the way, in case you didn't know, is 6th in intended air yards per attempt. He's 1st in completed air yards, and he's 6th in on-target throws. So it's never about the player of Purdy or the situation of Purdy for me. The player, I don't think Brock Purdy, if he was in 28 other teams, would be as successful. I think it's a chicken and egg where it's the egg came first, if you will, over being Shanahan. I just don't know if they're going to pass enough. What do you think? You think the passing volume will be there to support multiple pass catchers in San Francisco?
I mean, what has been Brock Purdy's MO over the course of his career? He gets the ball to his playmakers, and his playmakers get yards after the catch, and that pads the stats. You take a few away, he doesn't look as invincible anymore. I mean, for him to be somebody that I'm ranking in my top 12 or 15, like, he better be able to connect on every single pass to Brandon Ayuk, which is not going to happen. I can't trust Brock Purdy this week.
Yep. I'm right there with you. I want to trust Ayuk as at least a wide receiver too. Just the pure volume alone should support that. On the defensive side, Nick Bosa went down last week with Justin Jefferson. There was $60 million on the field at one point. Luckily, both got up and both have recovered. Bosa looks to play. Jared Verse, we talked about earlier. I think a case to be made so far for defensive rookie of the year. Long way to go, but still. And we even said Quentin Lake is a good defensive back, and even mid-range to deep plays. Any other players on either side of the ball that I left out? I mean, is Troy Reader someone that you're really wanting to start or comfortable starting or have to start?
No, you don't have to start.
Okay, good, because I don't like him, but I get it. And so, well, I hate to say we're going to speed through some of these other games, but we're against the clock, and there's 3 matchups left. The Sunday night game is my Chiefs against Keith's Falcons and Haley's Falcons and Atlanta's Falcons. And here's a little stat. Patrick Mahomes has played in 10 dome games in his career. In those games, he has averaged 314 yards passing, 2.3 touchdowns, and has only 2 total interceptions across those 10 games. I think the loss of Isaiah Pacheco is going to lead to an increase in passing for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. The question I have for you is over under 30 pass attempts for Mahomes for the first time this year.
Under. Under. I don't trust this Falcons defense, edge rushing situation outside of Judon to. You know what? No, I take that back. Leah, I think he gets past 30. I take that back.
Okay, there you go. Do you have a question? Z Smitty wants to know. Experts, I'll put that in quotes because who the heck's an expert? Say to start Drake London, which I agree that, yes, I have London over Amari Cooper because the volume against a horrible defense. Sure, Drake London against Trent McDuffie is a terrible matchup by comparison. He has Bijan. That's lots of eggs in the Falcons' basket. I'm going to say I still think London with an improving Kirk Cousins is better than Cooper just because everything I've seen about Amari Cooper from body language to rapport with Watson has been just bad. Do you lean Cooper over London, or are you staying true to the quote unquote experts and sticking with Drake London?
I'm sticking with Drake London. I think the wide receiver one we've kind of are starting to see established in Cleveland is Judy, not Cooper. For whatever reason, he has more of a connection with Deshaun Watson, and I don't trust Deshaun Watson to throw the ball accurately enough to warrant putting Cooper over London.
Yep. I'm right there with you, man. Z, I hope that works out, and I hope London does outscore Cooper so that this doesn't, bode negatively for all of us, included, that have to make that same decision. We have a decision to start Kirk Cousins outside, and maybe in Superflex, but outside of that, I say no. You agree with that? He's definitely not entering into the top 12 conversation, unless I'm misreading the tea leaves that you have, Jorge.
I'm sorry, you're saying Kirk Cousins is not going to be in the top 12?
Correct.
Yeah, I have him at 14, so not at the top 12.
Okay, yeah, it's closer than
I think what you saw last week in that 2-minute drill, that was vintage. That I shouldn't even say that was vintage Kirk Cousins. That was Kirk Cousins at another level that I don't think we've seen in quite some time. So I am hopeful this turns into a back and forth shootout, but I'm not ready to put him in my top 12 just yet.
That's fair. I think that's fair to say. All right, moving on to the pass catchers in this game. We know it's going to be Rashee Rice. On the opposite side, Drake London, we talked about, is not a must, absolute smash play, but he's staying in our lineups. Bijan is. What do we do with Kyle Pitts at this point right now? I mean, a 13% target share on the season. He looks to be their fourth target, fourth option in the passing game, or third option in the passing game, fourth option on the field. The touchdown saved his season as a whole. The Chiefs have been absolutely ransacked by the tight end position in general. Isaiah Likely in week 1, Gesicki in week 2. Is this a get right, if you will, for Pitts, or is this more of a reassurance game, I think is what we'll call that?
I think this is a reassurance game. There's a tight end that we'll talk about in our last matchup that I'm more high on Pitts than that I think you could probably get on your team.
Yeah, I agree. And Z, you bring up good points. You really do. I mean, the line for receiving yards is similar. Yes. The team total is higher for the Browns, which that shocked me a little bit, just because I know the Browns play a ton of high tempo, but I think the matchup between the Falcons and the Chiefs will be more. There'll be more fireworks in this than I expect, or than I would expect to see, or potentially out of the Cleveland matchup, just because both offenses could completely stymie in that Cleveland New York game, and it could turn into just a dumpster fire real quick.
Yeah, and to his point, the targets, yes, 17 targets of Cooper's to 14 of Judy's. And he says in the comments that just Judy coming down with him. That's a big fucking deal. Like, Jerry Judy's catch percentage is 57%. Amari Cooper's is 29. Like, give me the production. Like, the target volume is not that far off where I'm like, it's not like 17 targets to 8 where it's just like, okay, well, then obviously. So, yeah, I like Judy more than Cooper, to answer his question in the chat.
Yeah. And I think that maybe that goes a little bit towards it too. When you have established trust in a receiver, the targets then eventually can start to turn the other direction. If I was leaning one way or the other in a consistent target volume or target percentage, I could see Judy's increasing to a higher degree than I could see Cooper's increasing or continue to increase. But that's just, it's also trust in a bad quarterback on, the targets and the catchable throws. It's a mess in Cleveland that I really don't love having a piece of, regardless, other than the draft capital that you spent for Jerry Jeudy if you're in a super, super deep league like some of my 14-team leagues I'm in. But we have plenty of flex options in this game. Darnell Mooney looked good last week towards the end of the game. The trust with him and Kirk Cousins. We knew that coming in, that his situation in Chicago was so bad as a result of just poor quarterback play, that there was a chance he could become a wide receiver 3 flex option this week or this season. Xavier Worthy has the upside, we know. Jorge, what are you doing with the Kansas City running backs? Are you starting Carson Steele anywhere, or is that just a, hey, just if I have to?
Really, it's a just if I have to. I'm staying away.
I'm the same way. I could see Keontae Ingram even coming in and playing super spoiler and just messing up that whole situation. So, all right, Jacksonville at Buffalo. Buffalo's 5.5-point favorite, 45.5-point implied total. Evan Ingram is most likely trending towards out. Didn't practice twice this week. Tank Bigsby's even gotten in some limited practices. Darnell Savage has gotten in limited practices. Terrell Bernard is out. Taron Johnson is out. Monday night game with some of those plays. We're just benching Evan Ingram at this point, right? He's not even somebody that we're going to risk playing. If you have him, do you roster Brenton Strange?
You roster Brenton Strange, but I think the target volume was going to go to the tight end position if Evan Ingram was there. It's not going to go there because Brenton Strange is there.
That's fair to say. That's fair to say. Will the targets go through which Buffalo receiver? Name them in order, and you have to be perfect. Go for it.
Brian Thomas, Christian Kirk, then Gabe Davis.
Okay. Now, the Buffalo side, which I was going to get there too. So, yeah. Buffalo.
Yeah. Shakir, okay. Coleman, Samuel.
Gotcha. Dalton Kincaid, figure higher or lower than Shakir?
Lower.
Okay. Defensive side of the ball. Let's go with Balin Spector, who stepped in for Terrell Bernard, wore the green dot. How high you have Spector, and is he in that linebacker 2-3 range for suggestions?
Yeah, so he is in the 3 range. Him and Dorian Williams are back-to-back 34 and 35 for me. That's where I'm going with that. I can't trust any safety in Buffalo. And to be honest with you, let me put up Jacksonville's efficiency real quickly here, as opposed to sorting through rankings here.
While you're doing that, I'll pull up Kevin's question that he'll have, which, good morning, Kevin, by the way. He has a Kings Classic, his last flex, which, by the way, if you don't know about the Kings Classic, it is a 14-team league with 3 flex plays. So it's deep. His team's just not garbage. Because you had to make these decisions, which isn't a bad decision, Odunze or Josh Reynolds. I just can't for the life of me trust Caleb Williams. But then again, that's me saying I trust Bo Nix in this contest as well. But I think I'm going to lean Josh Reynolds. What about you, Jorge, before you dive into your data?
I like Odunze. I think this is a get-right game for Caleb Williams, and I like his matchup better. Josh Reynolds is Josh Reynolds. I get it. He's been targeted a lot by Bo Nix, but I'm not overthinking it. It's Rome Odunze.
Okay, I hope that's the case. I think that we need this for both Odunze and Caleb Williams, and like you said, Indy might be one of those type of games to be able to get right. You were looking up some Jacksonville data. You went to
no defensive back there. I will say Devin Lloyd has been playing like a man possessed. Obviously, you're starting him and Foye Oluokun, excuse me.
I worry about Oluokun. You know what?
Why is it? Continue, please.
Look at Foye's snap totals for the first 2 weeks.
All right.
What you'll see is you're going to see about 80-ish% snaps. Right. None of those snaps have been related to injury. None of those snaps have been game script dependent where they've taken them out because they've been up by 30. Those have been actual defensive replacement metrics, meaning he's been taken out on certain snaps, at least to the best of my research that I've done as far as watching, short of watching the game each play. I will admit that. But there is reason for concern. It's defensive coaching, different coaching staff, different scenario. I'm not a full fade on Lucan. Even at 80% of the snaps, his production can be there, but I don't think you're going to get that high-end LB1 production going forward. So if you're not in a league with me and I don't have him or you don't have him, try to send him this way, maybe that's not a bad trade and upgrade type scenario for maybe an edge rusher if you're short on that, or if you don't trade for defensive backs because they're all garbage. But all right, so we got that game. Let's last but not least, York Washington Commanders travel to Cincinnati. Cincinnati 7.5-point favorites, a 47-point total. Jorge, Jaden Daniels, another quarterback one finish with his legs, or do you think his lack of, like, I don't want to say his arm talent because he has arm talent, but I think it's the opportunity's been presented. They talked about that. They showed, I think it was Cam Taylor-Britt from the Bengals, who said they're setting him up. Actually, it sounded like he said they're setting him up properly, simple, not real advanced opportunity to get him acclimated. Where's Jaden Daniels at for you this week? Are you still riding high on the legs?
Let me pull up my rankings really quickly. Sorry. Okay. Jaden Daniels is my quarterback 10. So he's actually almost outside the 12. I like, you can only get away with rushing for so long. I do like this defensive, I do like Jermaine Pratt. I do like Logan Wilson. I do like Trey Hendrickson, both being able to get to Daniels, whether he takes off or he stands in the pocket. But this has to be a pocket passing game for Jaden Daniels and his legs for him to be in the top 12 or at least top 10 in fantasy this week, which I'm hoping he does, obviously.
Yep, absolutely. I'm hoping he does too. And I hope the ball goes to Terry McLaurin in some capacity, but I'm starting to have my concerns. And speaking of that, let's play this game of player fade this week and start with, are you playing or fading T. Higgins?
Playing.
Are you playing or fading Zach Moss?
Fading.
Playing or fading Andre Yoshivas?
Definitely playing.
Player fade Terry McLaurin?
Fade.
Player fade Zach Ertz?
Love Zach Ertz. A lot of people out there are kind of down on Zach Ertz this week. When trailing in games, he is the number one first read target for the Commanders. And it's not even close. So I think that's what you're going to see this week. And you're going to see a lot of Jaden Daniels and Zach Ertz trying to get some garbage time points there for you.
There we go. And that's been this week's installment of Player Fade. Brian Robinson Jr. is in our lineups. I think this is the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase helium game that everybody's been waiting for, with some T. Higgins sprinkled in and maybe some Yoshivas as well. We shall see about that. Jermaine Burton, don't know where he's at. But on the defensive side, Jorge, Washington, outside of Bobby Wags, Frankie Louvu, we talked a little bit about earlier, where maybe this is a tackle-heavy game, or you think they try to rush the passer?
I think they try to rush the passer. I think they're going to try and take a page out of Kansas City last week and just really try to get to Burrow. I'll tell you what, though. You talk about which decreases the floor for Frankie Louvu. Two players I want to talk about, one of which is out. Clelin Ferrell, the former first-round pick of the Vegas Raiders. Mm-hmm. He's actually very, very good productive-wise in terms of pass rushing efficiency. So when he comes back, which I'm hoping it's next week, if he's on your waiver wire and you have a deep bench and you need a defensive lineman, I would snatch him up, to be honest with you. Somebody this week that I'm actually really high on. He doesn't play a lot of slot. He plays outside. He's the right cornerback for the Commanders, Benjamin St-Juste. This guy has been targeted 18 times, allowed 11 receptions. The next highest Commander that's been targeted as far as cornerbacks is what Mike Sainristil. They're going to be targeting either Higgins or Chase or both, which means St-Juste is going to have a lot of opportunities, especially for those who play in cornerback-specific leagues. I think he is the smash play this week.
Well, Jorge, I think that wraps up week 3 of the NFL slate. Feel like we've obviously went a little bit longer than normal, but that's okay. When you talk about offense and IDP at the same time, I'm fine with adding in. Great
Absolutely.
Assortment of questions today. Very good eclectic mix of IDP and offense and even betting, etc. Obviously, try to let everybody get to their lineups. Obviously, I say obviously a lot. Sorry about that. But go to fantasyandframes.com where all the, 30 articles a week almost are getting pumped out, 40 hours worth of podcasts. At Nate Markham over on Twitter. If you have any questions from me, would love to answer them. At Jorge B. Edwards on Twitter for Jorge as well. All right, good luck with all of your teams today. If there's anything you want to get out there for everybody before we quickly jump out, feel free to do so.
So stay tuned for all our content that we come out every day. Kicking off tomorrow, we got 1 Foot Down, our college fantasy football podcast with Chris Battisell. Check that out at 9 p.m. Eastern. Then we got our waiver show. We got our hockey show. We got our NCAA football betting show. We got Fantasy and Frames Wednesday. We got our NFL show, prop betting. We got Dynasty Evaluation with John McGlynn, who joined us earlier, and Justin Taylor. And, of course, we got the Daily Fix, our DFS show for DraftKings on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. And then we're right back here. I'll be on time this week, or next week, I should say, from 9 to 12 a.m. to p.m. Eastern. So thank you very much for everybody who's tuning in. If you haven't already, head over to our YouTube, subscribe at Fantasy and Frames, as well as all the other social media channels. We have tons of content coming out everywhere. And head over to fantasyandframes.com. Like Nate said, check out our articles, check out our rankings. Thank you all for who tuned in this morning. We hope you have lots of success. And yeah.
See you next week.